The rain hammered against Ethan's windshield like 1,000 angry fists as he raced through the flooded streets of Southtown, Connecticut. His phone buzzed again, the same unknown number, the same desperate voice on the other end. "Please, you have to come now. Everything's flooding. I don't know what to do." He'd fixed leaky faucets and broken furnaces for strangers before, but something about this call felt different. Something that would shatter the careful, quiet life he'd built for himself and his daughter. What he didn't know was that behind that penthouse door waited a woman who would turn his entire world upside down and force him to choose between the safety of solitude and the terrifying beauty of letting someone in. If you're ready to dive into a story about unexpected connections, second chances, and finding home in the most unlikely places, stay with me until the end. And hey, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's begin. The house on Maple Street had seen better days. Hell, it had seen better decades. Ethan Myers stood in the cramped kitchen of his late grandfather's place, staring at the coffee maker that had decided, once again, to give up on life. The linoleum floor was cracked in 3 places, the cabinets hung slightly crooked, and the whole structure seemed to sigh every time the wind picked up. But it was his. More importantly, it was Lily's. "Daddy, the bathroom sink is making that funny noise again." Ethan turned to find his 5-year-old daughter standing in the doorway, her dark curls pulled into 2 lopsided ponytails that he'd attempted that morning. One was noticeably higher than the other. He'd tried. That counted for something. "The gurgling noise or the whistling noise?" he asked, already reaching for the toolbox he kept under the sink. "The gurgling one. Like it's trying to talk, but it has a tummy ache." Despite everything, the mounting bills, the leak in the attic he'd been putting off, the constant juggling act of single parenthood, Ethan smiled. Lily had a way of describing things that made even broken plumbing sound almost poetic. "I'll take a look after breakfast," he promised, glancing at the clock. 7:15. He had a repair job across town at 9, another at 11, and Mrs. Patterson's furnace to check sometime before 3. "Go brush your teeth, Bug. I'll make you some toast." "Can I have the cinnamon kind?" When have I ever said no to the cinnamon kind? Lily grinned, revealing the gap where her front tooth used to be, and bounded off down the hallway. Ethan listened to her footsteps. Too loud, too enthusiastic for the early hour, and felt that familiar tightness in his chest. The one that came every morning when he realized he was doing this alone. Had been doing it alone since Lily was 6 months old. Her mother, Jessica, had left a note on the kitchen counter and her engagement ring beside it. "I can't do this. I'm sorry." 7 words. That was all she'd given him. No explanation, no forwarding address, no promise to ever come back. Just 7 words and a baby who needed him to figure it out. So he had. He'd dropped out of community college, moved into his grandfather's house after the old man passed, and cobbled together a living doing handyman work around Southtown. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't what he'd imagined at 24, but it was enough to keep the lights on and food in the fridge, and most days that felt like victory enough. The coffee maker sputtered to life, miraculously, and Ethan poured himself a cup of the weak, bitter brew it produced. He'd learned not to expect much from it. From anything, really. Keep expectations low, and disappointment couldn't find you. "Daddy, I brushed for the whole 2 minutes," Lily announced, appearing again with toothpaste still visible at the corner of her mouth. "Good job, Bug." Ethan wiped her face with a damp paper towel and handed her a plate of cinnamon toast. "Eat up. Mrs. Chen is going to pick you up at 8:30. "Are we doing math today?" "You bet." Lily made a face, but she didn't argue. She'd been homeschooled since she was old enough to learn, mostly because Ethan couldn't afford daycare, and the local elementary school had a waiting list longer than his arm. He'd taught himself how to teach, reading books from the library, watching YouTube videos late at night after Lily was asleep, printing out worksheets from free educational websites. It wasn't perfect, but Lily could read at a 2nd grade level and do basic addition and subtraction. That had to count for something. The morning passed in its usual rhythm. Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor, arrived exactly on time to watch Lily while Ethan worked. She never charged him a dime, insisting that keeping an eye on one sweet little girl was no trouble at all, especially since her own grandchildren lived 3 states away. Ethan suspected she was lonely, but he was grateful enough not to question it. He kissed Lily's forehead, grabbed his toolbox, and headed out into the gray October morning. The air smelled like rain, that heavy, expectant smell that promised a storm before nightfall. Ethan glanced at the sky, noted the dark clouds gathering on the horizon, and made a mental note to check that the tarp over the attic leak was secure. His first job was replacing a garbage disposal for Mr. and Mrs. Kowalski on the north side of town. They were in their 70s, sweet people who always offered him coffee and homemade cookies. The disposal had given out 3 days ago, and Mrs. Kowalski kept apologizing for calling him, as if fixing things wasn't literally his job. "You're a lifesaver, Ethan," she said, pressing a Tupperware container of chocolate chip cookies into his hands as he packed up his tools. "I don't know what we'd do without you." "Happy to help, Mrs. K." He smiled, accepted the cookies because refusing would hurt her feelings, and tried not to think about how the $40 they'd paid him would barely cover gas and groceries for the week. The second job was a clogged drain at the Martinez house, which took longer than expected because the clog turned out to be a small action figure wedged deep in the pipe. He handed it to their 8-year-old son, who looked simultaneously guilty and relieved. By 3 o'clock, Ethan was checking Mrs. Patterson's furnace, a finicky old unit that wheezed and rattled but somehow kept running year after year. She paid him in cash, mostly 1s and 5s pulled from an envelope she kept in her freezer for reasons she'd never explained. "Storm's coming," she said as he was leaving, peering out her front window at the darkening sky. "You be careful driving, young man." "Yes, ma'am." The rain started just as he pulled into his driveway. Not a gentle drizzle, but a sudden deluge that turned the world into a blur of gray water. Ethan made a run for the front door, toolbox held over his head, and burst into the house soaked to the skin. "Daddy!" Lily came running, throwing her arms around his legs. "You're all wet!" "Good observation, Bug." He ruffled her damp hair. She'd clearly been playing in the rain earlier, and looked at Mrs. Chen. "Sorry I'm late. That last job took longer than I thought." "No trouble at all. We've been having a grand time, haven't we, Lily?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "We made a blanket fort and read 3 whole chapters of Charlotte's Web." "Sounds like you had a better afternoon than I did." Ethan helped Mrs. Chen gather her things, walked her to the door with an umbrella, and watched to make sure she made it safely across the yard to her own house. The rest of the evening unfolded like it always did. Ethan made dinner, spaghetti, because it was cheap and Lily would actually eat it without complaining. They sat at the small kitchen table, Lily chattering about the blanket fort and the spider in the book, and how she thought Charlotte was very smart and also very sad. "Why is she sad?" Ethan asked, twirling pasta on his fork. "Because she knows she's going to die, but she saves Wilbur anyway. That's sad and brave at the same time." Ethan looked at his daughter, at her serious expression and the way she was trying to articulate something complex and true, and felt that chest tightness again. But this time, it wasn't about fear or loneliness. It was about love so fierce it bordered on pain. "You're pretty smart yourself, you know that," Lily beamed. "I know." After dinner came bath time, which involved more water ending up on the floor than on Lily, followed by pajamas, teeth brushing, and 3 stories because Lily insisted that 2 wasn't enough and 4 was too many, so 3 was just right. "Good night, Bug," Ethan said, tucking the blankets around her small body. "Sweet dreams." "Good night, Daddy. I love you to the moon and back. I love you to the moon and back and all the stars in between." It was their routine, the same words every night. Ethan kissed her forehead, turned on the nightlight shaped like a turtle that projected constellations onto the ceiling, and pulled the door mostly closed, leaving it open just a crack the way Lily liked it. Then came the part of the day he both anticipated and dreaded, the quiet hours after Lily was asleep. Ethan changed into dry clothes, made himself a sandwich he ate standing over the sink, and settled onto the sagging couch in the living room. The TV flickered to life, some late-night rerun of a cop show he'd seen a dozen times. The radiator hissed and clanked, filling the small house with its familiar metallic rhythm. This was his life. Predictable. Contained. Safe. He told himself he was content, that this was enough, that wanting more was dangerous, the kind of hope that led to disappointment. The rain intensified, hammering against the windows with increasing violence. Wind rattled the old panes, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. Ethan glanced toward the hallway, listening for any sign that Lily had woken, but heard nothing. She'd always been a deep sleeper. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. Ethan frowned, glancing at the screen. Unknown number. Probably a spam call. He let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, it buzzed again. Same number. On the third call, Ethan answered, his voice rough with irritation. Hello? Is this Ethan Myers? The handyman? The voice on the other end was female, cultured, and tight with barely controlled panic. Yeah, that's me. Who's this? My name is Marianne Whitmore. I got your number from Mrs. Patterson. She said you're reliable and you work after hours if it's an emergency. Depends on the emergency. Ethan muted the TV, suddenly more alert. What's going on? I have a leak, a bad one. It's coming from somewhere behind my living room wall and there's water everywhere. I've put down every towel I own, but it's not stopping. Mrs. Patterson said you could help. Ethan glanced at the window, at the sheets of rain turning the street into a river. Where are you located? The Whitmore building, penthouse level. The Whitmore building. Ethan knew it. Everyone in Southtown knew it. The sleek glass and steel tower that had gone up 5 years ago on the waterfront, all luxury condos and high-end retail on the ground floor, the kind of place Ethan would never set foot in under normal circumstances. Look, Ms. Whitmore, in this weather, I'll pay you double your normal rate, triple, whatever it takes. Please. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and Ethan heard genuine fear beneath the polished exterior. I don't know what to do. The building superintendent isn't answering, and I can't just let my home flood. Ethan closed his eyes, ran a hand through his damp hair, and swore under his breath. He thought about his warm, dry couch, about the fact that driving across town in a storm like this was asking for trouble, about the fact that he had a daughter asleep down the hall who needed him in one piece. But he also thought about the woman on the phone, clearly terrified and alone in her flooding penthouse. And he thought about triple his normal rate, which would mean he could finally fix that attic leak properly instead of jerry-rigging it with a tarp. I'll be there in 20 minutes, he heard himself say. Thank you so much. The concierge will send you up. Penthouse 3. Ethan ended the call and sat for a moment listening to the rain, wondering what the hell he'd just agreed to. Then he pushed himself off the couch, grabbed his toolbox and raincoat, and headed across the hall to Mrs. Chen's house. She answered the door in her bathrobe, glasses perched on her nose. Ethan, what's wrong? Emergency call. I hate to ask, but could you... I'll stay with Lily. Go. Don't worry about a thing. You're a saint, Mrs. Chen. I'm a bored old woman who likes your daughter better than most people. Now go before that poor woman's house floats away. The drive across town was harrowing. The rain came down in solid walls, and the wipers could barely keep up. Ethan drove slowly, carefully, his hands tight on the wheel. Twice he had to navigate around flooded sections of road, and once a tree branch flew past his windshield, missing his truck by inches. By the time he pulled up to the Whitmore building, his heart was pounding and his shirt was soaked through with nervous sweat despite the cold. The building loomed above him, all lit windows and modern architecture that looked wildly out of place in working-class Southtown. A doorman in a crisp uniform hurried out with an umbrella, looking alarmed at the sight of Ethan's battered pickup truck. Delivery entrance is around back, the doorman said, his tone polite but dismissive. I'm here to see Marianne Whitmore, penthouse 3. She's expecting me. The doorman's expression shifted to surprise, then professional neutrality. Of course. Right this way, sir. The lobby was all marble floors and crystal chandeliers, the kind of space that made Ethan acutely aware of his worn jeans and work boots. He tracked water across the pristine floor, leaving muddy footprints that made him wince. The elevator ride to the penthouse level was smooth and silent. Ethan caught his reflection in the mirrored walls. Wet hair sticking up at odd angles, 5 o'clock shadow, the permanent tiredness around his eyes. He looked exactly like what he was, a guy barely scraping by, out of his depth in a world of penthouses and doormen. The elevator doors opened directly into a private foyer. And there, standing in the doorway of the penthouse, was Marianne Whitmore. She was not what he'd expected. He'd pictured someone older, maybe, one of those society women with perfect hair and cold eyes. But Marianne Whitmore looked to be in her early 30s, with auburn hair pulled into a messy bun and no makeup. She wore designer jeans and a silk blouse, both of which had water stains spreading across the fabric. Her feet were bare, her expression was frazzled, and there was a smudge of dust on her left cheek. Ethan registered with an uncomfortable jolt. Beautiful. Mr. Myers? She stepped forward, relief washing over her face. Thank goodness. I'm Mary Ann. Please, come in. Ethan followed her into the penthouse, trying not to gape at his surroundings. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the storm-darkened city. The furniture was all clean lines and expensive fabrics. Art hung on the walls. Actual art, not posters or prints. And in the middle of this pristine space was a growing puddle of water, spreading out from behind an elegant gray sofa. It started about an hour ago, Mary Ann explained, her words tumbling out quickly. Just a few drops at first, but then it got worse. I moved the sofa, and that's when I saw how bad it really was. I've been trying to soak it up, but I can't keep up. Ethan set down his toolbox and approached the wall. Water was indeed streaming from somewhere behind it, running down in rivulets and pooling on the hardwood floor. He pressed his hand against the wall, feeling for moisture, checking the temperature. Your building has a flat roof? I think so, yes. The drains are probably overwhelmed. All this rain has nowhere to go, so it's backing up and finding the path of least resistance, which happens to be right here into your living room. Can you fix it? Ethan met her eyes. They were green, he noticed, with flecks of gold, and tried to project more confidence than he felt. I can stop the immediate flooding. The real fix will need to happen when the rain stops and someone can get on the roof, but I can at least slow this down and protect your floors. Please, do whatever you need to do. For the next hour, Ethan worked steadily, cutting a small access panel in the wall, finding the source of the leak, and redirecting the water flow into a bucket system that would buy them time. Mary Ann hovered nearby, handing him tools when he asked, holding the flashlight when he needed both hands, asking questions about what he was doing and why. She wasn't what he'd expected in other ways, too. She didn't talk down to him or treat him like hired help. She seemed genuinely interested in his explanations, genuinely grateful for his help. And when she laughed, which happened when Ethan made a joke about the building's luxury water feature, the sound was warm and unguarded. You're good at this, she said as he was packing up his tools, the leak reduced to a manageable drip into the largest bucket. It's what I do. No, I mean, you're really good. You knew exactly what the problem was the minute you looked at it, and you explained everything so clearly. I actually understood what was happening to my own walls. Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. He wasn't used to compliments, especially not from women who looked like Mary Ann Whitmore. Just practice. I've been doing this since I was 16, learning from my grandfather. Well, you saved my home tonight. I can't thank you enough. She disappeared into another room and returned with her purse, pulling out her wallet. What do I owe you? Ethan did quick math in his head. Materials, time, emergency rate. 200 should cover it. I said triple your normal rate. My normal rate for a job like this would be about 75, so about 200 is not triple 75, Mr. Myers. Ethan, and honestly, 200 is fair. I didn't have to do that much. Mary Ann looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she counted out $300 in crisp bills and pressed them into his hand. 200 for the work, 100 for coming out in a storm like this, non-negotiable. Their fingers brushed as she handed him the money, and Ethan felt that jolt again, stronger this time. He pulled his hand back quickly, shoving the bills into his pocket. Thank you, he managed. Call the building super in the morning. He'll need to get someone on that roof as soon as the weather clears. I will. She walked him to the door, and then, just as he was about to step into the elevator, she spoke again. Ethan? He turned back. Yeah? Do you have a business card, in case I ever need repairs again? No, I don't really do the card thing, but I can give you my number. She handed him her phone, already open to a new contact entry, and he typed in his information, trying not to notice how expensive the phone was or how his fingers left smudges on the screen. Ethan Myers, handyman, she read when he handed it back. Perfect. Thank you again, truly. No problem. Get some sleep, Ms. Whitmore. Mary Ann, she corrected with a small smile. And you too. The drive home was slightly less terrifying, the worst of the storm having passed. Ethan's mind kept replaying the evening, the elegant penthouse, the way Marianne had looked at him like he was competent and capable instead of just the guy who fixed things, the warmth of her laugh, the way her hair had escaped its bun in curling tendrils around her face. He shook his head, annoyed at himself. She was a client, a wealthy client who lived in a completely different world. Whatever he was feeling, and he wasn't even sure what he was feeling, was pointless and stupid. Mrs. Chen was dozing on his couch when he got home, a book open on her lap. She woke when he came in, blinking behind her glasses. "Lily's been asleep the whole time," she reported. "Not a peep." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Probably hire a babysitter and go broke." She patted his arm as she gathered her book. "Everything okay with your emergency?" "Yeah, just a leak. Nothing too dramatic." But as he locked the door behind her and made his way down the hall to check on Lily, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that the careful, predictable life he'd built had just developed a crack, and he wasn't sure whether to be terrified or exhilarated by what might come flooding through. Lily was sprawled across her bed, one arm hanging off the side, her mouth slightly open. Ethan pulled the blanket back over her, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Love you to the moon and back, bug." Then he went to his own room, stripped off his damp clothes, and collapsed onto the bed. He expected to fall asleep immediately. He was exhausted. His back ached from crouching by that wall, and tomorrow would start early like always. Instead, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about green eyes and the sound of unexpected laughter in a flooding penthouse. The next morning dawned cold and clear, the storm having passed in the night. Ethan woke to Lily jumping on his bed, her usual method of rousing him when she decided he'd slept long enough. "Daddy, wake up! Mrs. Chen brought over muffins." "Muffins?" Ethan cracked one eye open. "What kind?" "Blueberry, the good kind with the sugar on top." "Can't argue with that." He hauled himself out of bed, pulled on yesterday's jeans, and followed Lily to the kitchen where Mrs. Chen had indeed left a plate of fresh muffins on the counter. The day proceeded normally. Ethan had 2 scheduled jobs, a broken garbage disposal and a stuck window, both of which went smoothly. He picked up groceries on the way home, helped Lily with her reading practice, and made dinner. The evening unfolded in its usual rhythm. It wasn't until 3 days later that everything changed. Ethan was in the middle of replacing a section of rotted deck boards for the Hendersons when his phone rang. Unknown number again. He almost didn't answer, assuming it was spam, but something made him hit the green button. "Hello? Ethan, it's Marianne. Marianne Whitmore." His heart did something stupid in his chest. "Oh, hi. Is the leak still giving you problems?" "No, the super got it fixed. The roof drains were completely blocked, just like you said. They cleared them out and everything's fine now." She paused. "Actually, I was calling to thank you again, and to ask if you'd be willing to take on a few more jobs. I've been noticing some other things around the penthouse that need attention, and I'd rather work with someone I trust." "Sure," Ethan said, trying to sound professional instead of absurdly pleased. "I can do that. What kind of things are we talking about?" They spent 10 minutes discussing a loose tile in the bathroom, a door that stuck, and a light fixture that flickered. Small jobs, easy work. They scheduled a time for the following week, and Ethan hung up feeling unreasonably happy. Over the next month, Ethan found himself at the Whitmore building more frequently than he'd ever imagined. Marianne seemed to discover a new issue every few days, some legitimate, some that felt almost like excuses. Not that Ethan minded. The work was steady, the pay was good, and if he was honest with himself, he looked forward to those visits more than he should. Marianne was different from anyone he'd ever known. She ran her own company, something to do with commercial real estate development, and carried herself with a confidence that was both intimidating and attractive. But she also asked about Lily constantly, seemed genuinely interested in Ethan's life, and had a self-deprecating sense of humor that caught him off guard. "I broke a corporate real estate deal worth $8 million last week," she told him one afternoon while he was fixing her stuck door. "But I can't figure out how to work my own coffee maker. The irony is not lost on me." "Have you tried reading the manual?" "I threw it away because it was making me feel stupid." Ethan laughed. "That's one approach." Their conversations during these jobs grew longer, more personal. She told him about the pressure of running a company she'd inherited from her father, about board members who questioned every decision she made, about the loneliness of being at the top. He told her about Lily, about learning to braid hair from YouTube videos, about the constant juggling act of single parenthood. "You're doing an amazing job," Marianne said one day, her voice serious. "Lily's lucky to have you." "I'm just doing my best." That's more than a lot of people can say. It was during one of these visits, about 6 weeks after that first stormy night, that everything shifted. Ethan had just finished installing a new shower head in Marianne's master bathroom. The old one had started leaking at odd angles, she'd explained. He was packing up his tools when Marianne appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee. "I finally figured out the coffee maker," she announced proudly. "Want to celebrate my victory?" They sat on her balcony, despite the November chill, looking out over Southtown. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Can I ask you something?" Marianne said after a few minutes of comfortable silence. "Sure." "Why do you do this? The handyman work, I mean. You're clearly smart. You could probably do anything you wanted." Ethan took a sip of his coffee, buying time. "It's what I know, what my grandfather taught me, and it's flexible, which I need with Lily." "But is it what you want?" No one had ever asked him that. Not once in the 4.5 years since Jessica left. "I wanted to be an architect," he heard himself say. "I was studying architecture at the community college before I dropped out. I used to spend hours drawing buildings, imagining structures that didn't exist yet. But that was before Lily, before life got complicated. Now I want to be a good dad. Everything else is just noise." Marianne looked at him, her expression soft. "That doesn't mean you have to give up on your own dreams entirely." "Dreams are expensive. I can't afford them right now." "Maybe. Or maybe you just haven't found a way to make them fit yet." The conversation stayed with Ethan long after he left, her words echoing in his mind as he drove home through the darkening streets. A week later, on a Friday evening, Ethan's phone rang. Marianne again, but this time her voice was different, strained, upset. "Ethan, I'm so sorry to bother you, but do you think you could come over? Something's happened." "What's wrong? Is it the leak again?" "No, it's—" her voice cracked. "I just really need a friend right now. And I know that's not your job and you probably have plans, but I didn't know who else to call." Ethan looked at Lily, who was building a tower out of blocks on the living room floor. He looked at the clock, 6:30. He thought about all the reasons he should say no. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said instead. Mrs. Chen agreed to watch Lily, again, without asking questions. Ethan made the now familiar drive to the Whitmore building, his mind racing with possibilities. Had something happened with her company? Her family? Was she hurt? The doorman sent him straight up. Marianne opened the door before he could knock, and Ethan's chest tightened at the sight of her. Her eyes were red, her face blotchy from crying. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I shouldn't have called. This is ridiculous." "Hey." Ethan stepped inside, letting the door close behind him. "What happened?" She sank onto the sofa, the same one he'd moved during the flood, and buried her face in her hands. "The board voted to remove me as CEO. My own company, the one my father built and left to me. They said I'm too young, too inexperienced, that I've made too many questionable decisions. They want to bring in someone from outside, someone with proven leadership." "Can they do that?" "Legally, yes. They have enough votes, and I don't have the energy to fight them anymore. I've been fighting for 3 years, Ethan. 3 years of proving myself over and over, and it's never enough." Ethan sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance, but close enough that she could feel his presence. "I'm sorry. That's not fair." "No, it's not." She wiped her eyes, laughing bitterly. "And the worst part is, I don't even know if I want it anymore. The job, the company, all of it. I've been so busy trying to live up to my father's legacy that I forgot to figure out what I actually want my life to look like." They talked for hours. Marianne told him about her father, about the pressure of inheriting his empire at 28, about the isolation of being the youngest CEO in her industry. Ethan listened, offering no platitudes or easy answers, just his presence and attention. Somewhere around 9 o'clock, Marianne's stomach growled audibly. "When did you last eat?" Ethan asked. Breakfast? Maybe? Come on. He stood, extending his hand. You're going to feed yourself, and I'm going to make sure you do it. They ended up in her enormous kitchen, which looked like it had never actually been used for cooking. Ethan rummaged through her refrigerator and pantry, eventually producing the ingredients for a simple pasta dish. Mary Ann sat at the island, watching him move around her kitchen with an ease she'd never managed. You really know your way around a kitchen, she observed. When you're cooking for a 5-year-old who's an extremely picky eater, you learn fast. The key is making food that looks appealing but secretly contains vegetables. Devious. Necessary. They ate at her dining table, which Ethan suspected rarely got used. The conversation flowed easily, moving from serious topics to lighter ones. Mary Ann told him about disastrous first dates and awkward board meetings. Ethan shared stories about Lily's latest antics and the time he'd accidentally locked himself in a client's basement. It was past 11 when Ethan finally glanced at his phone and realized how late it had gotten. I should go. Mrs. Chen is probably wondering if I abandoned Lily permanently. Mary Ann walked him to the door, and for a moment they just stood there in the foyer, neither quite ready for the evening to end. Thank you, Mary Ann said softly, for coming, for listening, for being exactly what I needed tonight. Anytime, Ethan replied, and meant it. Then Mary Ann did something that surprised both of them. She closed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him in a tight hug. For a second, Ethan froze, unsure how to respond. Then his arms came up, holding her carefully, aware of how fragile she felt in this moment. You know, he said, his voice slightly muffled by her hair, if this place ever feels too big, too overwhelming, my couch is always available. It's old and kind of lumpy, but the company's decent. He'd meant it as a joke, a way to lighten the mood. But Mary Ann pulled back slightly, looking up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Thank you, Ethan. Really. He drove home through the quiet streets, his chest still warm from that hug, his mind churning. He was in dangerous territory, he knew. Getting attached to someone like Mary Ann Whitmore was asking for heartbreak. She lived in a penthouse. He lived in a house held together by duct tape and hope. She ran a multi-million-dollar company. He fixed toilets for a living. But she'd called him. When everything fell apart, she'd called him. That had to mean something, didn't it? The weekend passed in a blur of normal routines that felt somehow different. Ethan took Lily to the park on Saturday, helped her practice writing her name in cursive, made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs for Sunday breakfast. But underneath it all, his mind kept drifting back to Thursday night, to the weight of Mary Ann in his arms, and the look in her eyes when he'd made that stupid joke about his couch. It was just a joke, he reminded himself. She wasn't actually going to show up at his door. Monday morning started with the bathroom sink finally giving up completely. Water sprayed everywhere when Ethan tried to turn it on, soaking him and half the floor before he managed to shut off the valve. Daddy, you're making it rain inside, Lily announced from the doorway, delighted. Yeah, thanks for the observation, Bug. Ethan grabbed every towel he could find, mopping up the mess while mentally calculating how much a new faucet would cost and whether he could put it off another week. He couldn't. The faucet was beyond repair, corroded from years of hard water and neglect. Ethan spent 2 hours that afternoon installing a replacement, using parts he'd salvaged from a previous job because buying new ones wasn't in the budget. By Tuesday, he'd almost convinced himself that Thursday night had been an anomaly, a moment of connection that wouldn't repeat itself. Mary Ann probably felt embarrassed about calling him, about showing him that vulnerable side of herself. She'd probably find a different handyman for future jobs, someone more professional who didn't blur the lines between worker and friend. Then Wednesday morning happened. Ethan was replacing a broken step on the Johnsons' front porch when his phone rang. Mary Ann's name appeared on the screen, and his heart did that stupid thing again. Hey, he answered, trying to sound casual. Ethan, hi. I hope I'm not interrupting. Just working. What's up? There was a pause, and when she spoke again, her voice was quieter, almost hesitant. The board made it official yesterday. I'm out as CEO effective end of the month. They're bringing in some guy from Boston who apparently knows how to run a company better than I do. I'm sorry, Mary Ann. I've been thinking about what you said, about your couch. Another pause. Were you serious? About it being available if I needed somewhere to go? Ethan's hammer slipped, nearly catching his thumb. He straightened up, phone pressed tight to his ear. I was joking. Sort of. I mean, it's not exactly... Marianne, you live in a penthouse. My place is barely 800 square feet. I know what your place is. I'm asking if the offer was real. Why would you want to stay at my place? Because I can't stand being in this penthouse for one more night. Everything here reminds me of my father, of the company, of all the ways I've apparently failed. And I need to be somewhere that feels real. Somewhere I don't have to pretend or perform or be anyone other than just me. Ethan looked around at the Johnsons' modest house, at his scuffed work boots and the worn knees of his jeans. He thought about his cramped kitchen and the bathroom with one working sink and Lily's toys scattered across every available surface. Marianne, I have a 5-year-old daughter. My house is a mess. The hot water only lasts about 15 minutes. The floors creak, and the radiators sound like they're trying to communicate with aliens. I don't care about any of that. What about your stuff, your life? I'll bring a suitcase. That's all I need. This was insane, completely insane. Ethan barely knew this woman, despite the hours of conversation and the easy way they'd fallen into each other's lives. Having her stay at his house, even temporarily, crossed every professional boundary and most personal ones. Okay, he heard himself say. Okay? Yeah, okay, you can stay on the couch. But I'm warning you, Lily wakes up at 6:30 every morning and she's not quiet about it. Marianne's laugh came through the phone, surprised and genuine. I think I can handle that. Thank you, Ethan. Really. I'll be there tomorrow. Is evening okay? Evening's fine. I'll text you the address. After he hung up, Ethan sat on the Johnsons' porch for a full 5 minutes, staring at his phone, wondering what the hell he'd just agreed to. Mrs. Johnson appeared in the doorway with a glass of lemonade. Everything all right, dear? You look like you've seen a ghost. Just got some unexpected news, Ethan managed. Nothing bad, just unexpected. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan looked at his house with fresh eyes. Really looked at it. The sagging couch with the permanent indent where he sat every night. The coffee table with ring stains from countless mugs. The bookshelf made from cinder blocks and planks of wood. The walls that needed paint. The carpet that needed replacing. The general air of a place that was functional, but far from fancy. Marianne Whitmore was going to walk into this house in less than 24 hours. Ethan spent Thursday in a cleaning frenzy that would have made Mrs. Chen proud. He scrubbed surfaces that hadn't been scrubbed in months, organized Lily's toys into bins, washed every dish in the house, and attempted to fix the weird angle of the living room curtains that he'd been ignoring for 2 years. Why are you cleaning so much? Lily asked, watching him vacuum the same spot for the 3rd time. We're having a guest stay with us for a little while. Who? A friend of mine. Her name is Marianne. Lily's eyes widened. A girlfriend? A friend who happens to be a girl, yes. Is she nice? Very nice. You'll like her. Does she like dinosaurs? I don't know, Bug. You'll have to ask her. At 5:30 that evening, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the house. Ethan watched through the window as Marianne emerged from the back seat, pulling a single rolling suitcase behind her. She wore jeans and a sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders, and she looked simultaneously out of place and exactly right standing on his cracked sidewalk. Ethan opened the door before she could knock. Hi, Marianne said, and there was something vulnerable in her expression, like she was half expecting him to change his mind. Hi yourself, come on in. She stepped inside and Ethan saw his home through her eyes, the cramped entryway, the worn furniture, the general shabbiness of everything. But when she turned to look at him, she was smiling. It's perfect, she said. It's a disaster. It's a home. There's a difference. Lily chose that moment to come barreling around the corner, stopping short when she saw the stranger in their living room. She tucked herself behind Ethan's leg, peering out at Marianne with wide eyes. You must be Lily, Marianne said, crouching down to be at eye level. Your dad has told me so much about you. I'm Marianne. Do you like dinosaurs? Lily asked. I don't know very much about them, but I'd love to learn. That was apparently the right answer. Lily emerged from behind Ethan's leg and grabbed Marianne's hand. Come see my room. I have 17 dinosaurs. 17? That's a serious collection. Ethan followed them down the hall, watching as Lily gave Marianne the grand tour of her tiny bedroom, showing off each plastic dinosaur and explaining their names and prehistoric periods with the confidence of a 5-year-old who'd watched too many documentaries. Marianne listened attentively, asked questions, and didn't once check her phone or look bored. When Lily finished her presentation, Marianne turned to Ethan. She really knows her stuff. YouTube and the library are powerful educational tools. They had dinner together, spaghetti again, because it was Wednesday, and Wednesday was spaghetti night in the Myers household. Marianne insisted on helping, though her kitchen skills were clearly limited. She managed to burn the garlic bread and oversalt the sauce, but she laughed at her own mistakes instead of getting frustrated. I'm genuinely terrible at this, she admitted, scraping black crust off the bread. My kitchen at home is purely decorative. We'll work on it, Ethan said, then caught himself. We'll work on it, like she was going to be here long enough for cooking lessons. After dinner, Lily wanted to show Marianne her blanket fort, which led to an elaborate game involving dinosaurs, time travel, and a plot that Ethan couldn't quite follow, but that seemed to make perfect sense to both Lily and Marianne. He watched from the doorway, struck by how natural they looked together. Marianne sprawled on the floor in her expensive jeans, making roaring noises and apparently taking her role as a pterodactyl very seriously. Bath time and bedtime followed their normal routine, though Lily insisted that Marianne had to hear the bedtime stories too. They all crowded onto Lily's small bed, Ethan reading while Lily leaned against his side and Marianne sat cross-legged at the foot of the bed, smiling at the parts that made Lily laugh. Love you to the moon and back, Daddy, Lily said when the stories were done. Love you to the moon and back and all the stars in between, Bug. Good night, Marianne. Good night, Lily. Thank you for teaching me about dinosaurs. In the living room, Ethan pulled sheets and a blanket from the hall closet, trying to make the couch look more presentable as a bed. Marianne stood nearby, watching him work. I really appreciate this, Ethan. I know it's weird, me just showing up like this. It's not weird. Or maybe it is, but I don't mind. He straightened the blanket, then turned to face her. But I have to ask, how long are you planning to stay? I don't know, she admitted. Is that okay? Not knowing? Yeah, that's okay. They stood there for a moment, the house quiet around them except for the familiar hiss of the radiators and the distant sound of a car passing on the street. I should let you get some sleep, Ethan said finally. The bathroom's down the hall. There's only one working sink, but the water's hot if you're quick, and the couch is more comfortable than it looks. Probably. Marianne smiled. I'm sure it's fine. Thank you, Ethan, for all of this. In his room, Ethan lay awake for a long time, listening to the sounds of Marianne moving around the house. Water running, the creak of floorboards, the soft rustle of sheets as she settled onto the couch. It felt surreal, having her here in his space, breathing the same air, existing in the parts of his life he'd kept carefully contained for so long. The next morning, Ethan woke to the smell of coffee and something burning. He pulled on a t-shirt and stumbled into the kitchen to find Marianne standing at the stove, spatula in hand, staring down at what appeared to be the charred remains of scrambled eggs. Smoke drifted up from the pan. I was trying to make breakfast, she said, looking sheepish. I thought I could figure it out. I was wrong. Ethan took the spatula from her hand, moved the pan off the heat, and opened a window to let out the smoke. How did you burn eggs? I got distracted by the coffee maker, and then I forgot I was cooking, and then there was smoke, and I told you I was terrible at this. Terrible doesn't quite cover it, but he was smiling as he said it, already pulling out ingredients for a fresh attempt. Okay, cooking lesson number 1. You have to actually watch the food while it cooks. That seems obvious now that you say it. They cooked together, Ethan guiding Marianne through the process of making decent scrambled eggs. She was a terrible student, constantly getting distracted or asking questions that had nothing to do with cooking, but she was trying. And there was something intimate about it, standing close in his small kitchen, their hands occasionally brushing as they worked. Lily appeared just as they were plating the eggs, her hair sticking up in all directions. Marianne's still here, she announced, delighted. I am, Marianne agreed, and I helped make breakfast. Well, I tried to make breakfast. Your dad saved it. Daddy's a good cooker. Yes, he is. The days began to establish a rhythm. Marianne had nowhere she needed to be. She'd taken a leave of absence from the company during the transition period, so she stayed at the house while Ethan worked. At first, he worried about leaving her alone there, but when he came home that first afternoon, he found her sitting on the floor with Lily, helping with a puzzle. "How was your day?" Marianne asked, looking up at him with a smile. It was such a normal question, the kind of thing spouses asked each other, and it hit Ethan with unexpected force. No one had asked him that question in years. No one had been there to ask. "It was good. Fixed a toilet, installed a ceiling fan, glamorous stuff." "I'm sure you made that toilet very happy." Lily giggled. "Toilets can't be happy, Marianne." "Are you sure? Maybe we just can't tell." Over dinner, which Marianne had attempted to help with again, with mixed results, she told them about her day. She'd cleaned, which the house desperately needed. She'd taken a walk around the neighborhood, discovering a small park a few blocks away. She'd read 3 chapters of a book she'd been meaning to finish for months. "It's strange," she said, pushing pasta around her plate. "I haven't had a day with nothing scheduled in years. No meetings, no calls, no emergencies, just time." "How does it feel?" Ethan asked. "Honestly, a little scary, but also kind of wonderful." The second night, Marianne insisted on doing the dishes. Ethan tried to argue. She was a guest, she didn't need to help, but she shut him down quickly. "I'm not a guest. I'm someone crashing on your couch indefinitely. The least I can do is wash some dishes." So they washed together, Ethan handling the difficult pots while Marianne managed plates and utensils. The radio played softly in the background, some classic rock station that Ethan kept on more for noise than music. "Can I ask you something?" Marianne said, hands deep in soapy water. "Sure." "Do you ever regret it, choosing this life?" Ethan dried a plate slowly, considering his answer. "I don't think I chose it so much as it chose me. Jessica left and I had Lily, and everything else kind of fell into place around that. But if you could go back knowing what you know now, would you change anything?" "I'd change Jessica leaving, for Lily's sake, not mine. She deserves a mother who wants to know her." He set the plate in the cupboard. "But would I change having Lily? Not for anything in the world. She's the best thing that ever happened to me, even if the circumstances weren't ideal." Marianne was quiet for a moment, rinsing a bowl. "You're a good father, Ethan. I hope you know that." "I'm doing my best." "That's all any of us can do." By the end of the first week, Marianne's presence in the house felt less like an intrusion and more like a natural extension of their lives. She learned Lily's routines, helped with homework, discovered that she could make a decent grilled cheese sandwich, even if everything else defeated her. She fixed the wonky curtain rod in the living room using her engineering degree in ways Ethan hadn't expected. She reorganized the kitchen cabinets so things actually made sense. "You don't have to do all this," Ethan said, watching her label containers one evening. "I know, but I want to. It feels good to do something useful with my hands instead of just pushing papers and making phone calls." "You ran a company. That's more than pushing papers." "Maybe, but I never felt like I was actually building anything, just maintaining something my father built, trying not to mess it up too badly." She pressed a label onto a container of rice. "This is different. I can see the results immediately. The kitchen is organized. The curtain rod doesn't fall down. Small things, but real." The second week brought new challenges. Lily had a cold that kept her up half the night, coughing and feverish. Ethan spent the night alternating between checking on her and trying to get a few hours of sleep. Around 3 in the morning, he stumbled into the kitchen for water and found Marianne sitting at the table, wide awake. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Your radiators are very talkative at night." "Yeah, they have a lot to say." He filled a glass from the tap. "Sorry if they kept you up." "I don't mind. I've been thinking, actually." "About?" She hesitated, then pushed forward. "About what comes next for me. I can't hide out on your couch forever, as comfortable as it is. Eventually, I need to figure out what I'm doing with my life." Ethan sat down across from her, suddenly very awake. "Have you figured it out?" "Not yet. But being here, watching how you live, how you've built this life with Lily, it's made me realize something. I've been so focused on living up to my father's expectations, on proving I deserve the company he left me, that I never stop to think about what I actually want. And what do you want? I don't know yet, but I know it's not a corner office and board meetings and corporate politics. She looked at him, her eyes serious in the dim kitchen light. Is that crazy? Walking away from everything I've worked for? I don't think it's crazy. I think it's brave. Or stupid. Those aren't mutually exclusive. She laughed, the sound soft in the quiet house. True. From Lily's room came another round of coughing. Ethan started to stand, but Marianne was faster. I'll go, she said. You've been up with her all night. Let me help. Ethan listened as Marianne's footsteps retreated down the hall, heard her soft voice murmuring to Lily, the sound of water running as she refilled the humidifier. When she came back 20 minutes later, she looked tired but peaceful. She's asleep again. I read her a story about a dinosaur who had a cold. She seemed to relate to it. Thank you. You don't have to thank me, Ethan. She's a great kid. It's not exactly a hardship to help take care of her, but it was more than that, and they both knew it. Marianne wasn't just helping with Lily. She was becoming part of their small family, fitting into the spaces Ethan hadn't realized were empty until she filled them. The third week, Mrs. Chen invited herself over for tea, clearly curious about the woman who'd been living in Ethan's house. Marianne charmed her completely within 15 minutes, asking about her grandchildren and actually listening to the answers, helping her fix a stuck clasp on her favorite necklace. She's lovely, Mrs. Chen told Ethan later, cornering him in the kitchen while Marianne played blocks with Lily. Don't let that one get away. It's not like that, Mrs. Chen. Oh, please, I may be old, but I'm not blind. The way you look at her, the way she looks at you, that's not nothing, dear. She's going through a difficult time. She needed somewhere to stay. That's all. Mrs. Chen patted his hand. If you say so. But Ethan, sometimes the best things in life are the ones we don't plan for. That night, after Lily was asleep and the house had settled into its usual evening quiet, Ethan and Marianne sat on the couch together, watching some mindless sitcom neither of them was really paying attention to. Mrs. Chen thinks we're together, Ethan said during a commercial break. Marianne looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. Does that bother you? I told her she was wrong. Right, of course. Marianne turned back to the TV, but Ethan could see tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there before. I mean, we're not, right? Together? No, we're not. Right? They sat in silence for a moment, the canned laughter from the TV filling the space between them. Ethan? Marianne said finally. Yeah? What if we were? Together, I mean. Hypothetically. Ethan's heart started doing that stupid thing again. Hypothetically? Would that be completely insane, given our different lives, different circumstances? Probably, Ethan admitted. But a lot of things about this situation are insane. You living on my couch, for instance. That's pretty insane. But it's working. Yeah, it is. Marianne shifted on the couch, turning to face him more fully. I'm not good at this, Ethan. Relationships, feelings, any of it. I'm much better at spreadsheets and business plans. But being here with you and Lily, it's the first time in years I've felt like myself. Like I don't have to perform or prove anything. I can just be. I know what you mean. Do you? I've spent 4 years being just a dad. Just the guy who fixes things and makes sure Lily eats vegetables and remembers to brush her teeth. I forgot there were other parts of me until you showed up and started asking questions nobody else bothers to ask. They were close now, close enough that Ethan could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes, could smell her shampoo, something floral and expensive that didn't quite fit in his cramped bathroom but somehow worked anyway. I should probably go back to my penthouse, Marianne said softly. It's been 3 weeks. I can't keep imposing on you. You're not imposing. But I should go, that's the sensible thing. Probably. Neither of them moved. The company called yesterday, Marianne continued. They want me to come in next week for the final transition meetings. Sign papers, hand over access codes, make it all official. Are you going to go? I have to. It's my company, even if they're taking it from me. I owe it that much. And then what? I don't know. She looked at him, and there was fear in her eyes now, fear mixed with something that might have been hope. What if I don't want to go back to that life, Ethan? What if I want something different? Like what? Like this. Like belonging somewhere instead of just occupying space. Like being part of something real instead of performing a role. She paused. Like being with someone who sees me as just Marianne, not Marianne Whitmore, CEO, disappointing her father's legacy. Ethan reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. His hand lingered there, cupping her face gently. I've never seen you as anything but Marianne. From the first night I showed up at your penthouse and you answered the door with water stains on your fancy clothes and no idea how to fix your own leak. I was a mess that night. You were real. That's what I saw. The kiss, when it came, felt inevitable. Marianne leaned in first, but Ethan met her halfway, his lips finding hers with a gentleness that surprised them both. It wasn't fireworks or earth-shattering passion. It was softer than that, sweeter, a promise of possibility, of something neither of them had been looking for, but both desperately needed. When they pulled apart, Marianne rested her forehead against his. "This is complicated," she whispered. "Yeah. We should probably talk about it, figure out what it means." "Probably. But not tonight?" "Not tonight." They stayed like that for a while, wrapped in each other's arms on Ethan's lumpy couch, the TV still playing in the background, the radiators hissing their metallic conversation. Outside, Southtown settled into sleep, unaware that inside this small, worn house, two people were discovering that home wasn't always a place. Sometimes it was a person. Sometimes it was the quiet moment when you stopped running and let yourself be found. Morning came too quickly, sunlight filtering through the thin curtains and landing directly on Ethan's face. He blinked awake, momentarily disoriented by the weight against his shoulder. Marianne had fallen asleep on the couch beside him, her head resting in the curve of his neck, one hand curled against his chest. They'd stayed up talking until past 2, the conversation flowing from serious to silly and back again, neither wanting to break the spell of closeness that the kiss had created. Now, in the harsh light of day, reality pressed in. Ethan shifted carefully, trying not to wake her, but Marianne stirred anyway, her eyes fluttering open. "What time is it?" she murmured, her voice rough with sleep. "Almost 7. Lily will be up any minute." Marianne sat up quickly, running her hands through her tangled hair. "Right, okay. We should probably..." "Yeah." They stood awkwardly, the ease of last night replaced by uncertainty. Before either could figure out what to say, Lily's door opened and small footsteps patted down the hall. "Daddy, I'm hungry. Can we have pancakes?" Lily appeared in the doorway, then noticed Marianne. "Did you have a sleepover in the living room?" "Something like that, Bug," Ethan said, grateful for the interruption. "Go brush your teeth. I'll start the pancakes." Lily scampered off, and Marianne finally met Ethan's eyes. "Are we going to talk about what happened?" she asked quietly. "Do you want to?" "I don't know. Maybe. I don't want to mess this up, whatever this is." Ethan reached out, taking her hand. Her fingers were cold, and he rubbed his thumb across her knuckles. "We don't have to figure everything out right now. Let's just take it one day at a time, okay?" "One day at a time," Marianne repeated, relief washing over her face. "I can do that." The next few days existed in a strange limbo. Nothing had fundamentally changed. Marianne still slept on the couch, still helped with Lily, still burned toast more often than not, but everything felt different. There were more touches now, casual and deliberate, hands brushing as they passed in the narrow hallway, Marianne's fingers in Ethan's hair as they watched TV in the evening, Ethan's arm around her shoulders when she got a particularly difficult call from her lawyer about the company transition. They didn't kiss again. Not properly. It was like they were both afraid that pushing too fast would shatter whatever fragile thing was building between them. On Thursday afternoon, Ethan came home from a job to find Marianne sitting at the kitchen table, her laptop open, staring at the screen with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down his toolbox. "The transition meeting is scheduled for Monday. They want me there at 9. She closed the laptop. "Which means I should probably go back to my penthouse this weekend. Get my things together. Prepare for the meeting." Ethan's chest tightened. "Right. That makes sense." "I've been here almost a month, Ethan. I can't keep living on your couch." "Why not?" Marianne laughed, but there was no humor in it. Because it's not sustainable. Because you need your space back. Because she stopped, shaking her head. Because I'm scared that if I stay much longer, I won't want to leave at all. Would that be so terrible? I don't know, maybe. She stood, moving to the window that overlooked the small backyard. What are we doing here, Ethan? Really? He came up behind her, close but not touching. I think we're figuring it out as we go. But what if I mess it up? What if I go to that meeting on Monday and they offer me some deal, some compromise to keep me involved, and I take it because I'm too afraid to walk away completely? What if I choose the safe option instead of... She gestured around the kitchen. Instead of this? Then you choose it, and we figure out what that means. Marianne turned to face him, frustration clear in her expression. How are you so calm about this? Doesn't it bother you that I don't have any answers? I've been living without answers for 4 years, Marianne. I'm used to it. But you have Lily. You have a purpose. What do I have? Right now, you have us, if you want us. The words hung in the air between them, heavier than Ethan had intended. Marianne's eyes filled with tears, and she pressed her hand to her mouth. I do want you, she whispered. Both of you. That's what scares me. I've never wanted anything this much, and I have no idea how to make it work. Ethan pulled her into his arms, feeling her shake against him. Then we figure it out together. But Marianne, you have to decide what you actually want, not what you think you should want, not what would make sense on paper. What do you want? She didn't answer, just buried her face in his chest and held on tight. That evening, Lily sensed something was wrong. She was quieter than usual during dinner, watching Marianne with worried eyes. Are you sad? She asked finally, her small voice cutting through the silence. Marianne managed a smile. A little bit, sweetheart, but it's okay. Sometimes grown-ups get sad. Why are you sad? Because I have to make some big decisions, and I'm not sure what the right choice is. Lily considered this seriously, pushing peas around her plate. Daddy says when he doesn't know what to do, he thinks about what would make me happy. Maybe you should think about what makes you happy. Marianne looked at Ethan, something breaking open in her expression. That's very wise advice, Lily. I know, I'm smart like that. After Lily was in bed, Marianne started packing her suitcase. Ethan watched from the doorway, his hands shoved in his pockets. You're really going back? Just for the weekend. I need to prepare for Monday's meeting, and I need some time to think away from... She gestured around. From all of this. I can't think clearly when I'm here. Is that good or bad? I don't know yet. She folded a sweater carefully, placed it in the suitcase. Will you be at the meeting on Monday? Why would I be there? You wouldn't. That was a stupid question. She sat on the edge of the couch, her hands twisted in her lap. I just wish you could be. Having you there would make it easier. Ethan sat beside her, taking one of her hands. You're stronger than you think, Marianne. You don't need me to get through a business meeting. Maybe not, but I want you there anyway. They sat in silence for a moment, shoulders touching, both aware that this weekend might change everything. Can I call you? Marianne asked. While I'm at the penthouse? Anytime, day or night. She left Friday morning, the black car arriving at 8 to pick her up. Lily cried, clinging to Marianne's legs. Don't go, she wailed. I don't want you to leave. I'm just going home for a few days, sweetheart. I'll be back before you know it. Promise? Marianne looked at Ethan over Lily's head, and he could see the fear in her eyes. She was making a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. I promise, I'll see you again soon, she said carefully, kneeling to hug Lily properly. And we'll have a special adventure when I do, okay? Okay, Lily sniffled, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Ethan walked Marianne to the car, carrying her suitcase. The driver took it from him, loading it into the trunk with practiced efficiency. This feels like goodbye, Marianne said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's just a weekend. Is it? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he leaned down and kissed her, soft and brief, aware of the driver's presence and Lily watching from the window. Call me after the meeting on Monday, he said when he pulled back. I will. But as the car pulled away, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had just shifted. and not in a good way. The weekend dragged. Lily asked about Marianne constantly, wondering when she was coming back, whether she was okay, if she still liked dinosaurs. Ethan deflected as best he could, but the truth was he didn't know the answers himself. Marianne called Saturday night, her voice echoing strangely in what Ethan assumed was her enormous penthouse. "It's so quiet here," she said. "I forgot how quiet it is." "Are you okay?" "I've been going through files, preparing for Monday, looking at everything my father built, everything I'm about to walk away from." A pause. "It's a lot. Are you having second thoughts?" "About the company? About us?" "I'm having second thoughts about everything, Ethan." She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "My lawyer thinks I'm making a huge mistake. He spent 2 hours this afternoon trying to convince me to negotiate for a consulting position, maintain some connection to the company." "What did you say?" "I told him I'd think about it." Ethan's stomach dropped. "And are you thinking about it?" "Yes. No, I don't know." Frustration bled through the phone. "Being back here, it's making me question everything. This penthouse, this life, it's what I know, Ethan. It's familiar. And your house, as much as I love it, is so different from anything I've ever experienced. What if I can't actually live that way? What if the novelty wears off and I realize I made a terrible mistake?" "Then you made a mistake, but at least you'll know." "That's easy for you to say. You're not the one gambling your entire future." The words stung, and Ethan took a breath before responding. "You're right, I'm not. But Marianne, I can't make this decision for you, and I can't promise you that choosing us will be easy or comfortable. All I can promise is that if you do choose this, choose us, I'll do everything I can to make it work." Silence stretched between them, filled with things neither knew how to say. "I should go," Marianne said finally. "I have more files to review." "Okay, call me tomorrow?" "Yeah, tomorrow." But she didn't call Sunday. Ethan checked his phone obsessively, jumping every time it buzzed, only to find spam texts or work emails. By Sunday night, he was seriously considering driving to the Whitmore building himself. But what would he say when he got there? What right did he have to insert himself into her decision? Monday morning arrived with no word from Marianne. Ethan got Lily ready for the day on autopilot, his mind across town in a boardroom he'd never seen, where the woman he was falling for was deciding the trajectory of her entire life. Mrs. Chen picked up on his mood immediately when she arrived. "No news?" she asked gently. "Nothing. The meeting started at 9. It's almost 10 now." "These things take time, dear. Try not to worry." But worry was all Ethan could manage. He attempted to focus on work. He had a garbage disposal to replace and a fence to repair. But his mind kept drifting. What was happening in that meeting? Was Marianne standing firm on her decision to walk away? Or was she being convinced to stay, to compromise, to choose the life she'd always known over the uncertain future with him and Lily? At 11:30, his phone finally rang. Marianne's name appeared on the screen, and Ethan answered so fast he nearly dropped the phone. "How did it go?" "I signed everything." Her voice sounded strained, exhausted. "It's done. I'm officially no longer CEO of Whitmore Development." "How do you feel?" "Terrified, relieved, nauseous. Take your pick." A shaky breath. "They offered me a consulting position, just like my lawyer said they would. Generous salary, minimal time commitment, a way to stay connected without the responsibility." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. "What did you say?" "I told them I needed time to think about it. They gave me until Friday to decide." "Marianne, I know what you're going to say, that I should just walk away completely, make a clean break. But Ethan, it's not that simple. This company is my father's legacy. If I take the consulting position, I could still honor that while having time for other things." "Other things meaning us?" "Yes, meaning you and Lily, meaning a life that's actually mine instead of one I inherited." She paused. "Can I come over? I don't want to have this conversation on the phone." "Of course. When?" "Now. I'm already in the car." Ethan gave Mrs. Chen the rest of the day off, much to her knowing smile, and spent the next 20 minutes pacing his living room. When the black car finally pulled up, he was out the door before Marianne could even unbuckle her seatbelt. She looked exhausted, still wearing the professional suit she'd worn to the meeting, her hair pulled back severely. But when she saw him, her expression softened. "Hi," she said. "Hi yourself." They stood on the sidewalk, neither quite sure how to bridge the distance that the weekend had created. "I missed you," Marianne said finally. "These 3 days felt longer than the entire month I spent here." "I missed you too. Lily's been asking about you constantly." "Just Lily?" "Okay, me too. I missed you too." Marianne smiled, a real smile this time, and some of the tension between them eased. "Can we go inside? I need to talk to you about something." In the living room, Marianne paced while Ethan sat on the couch, watching her work through whatever was churning in her mind. "The consulting offer is good," she began. "Really good. It would give me financial security while I figure out what I want to do next. And it would only require me to be in the office maybe 2 days a week, which means I could still—" She stopped, looking at him. "I could still be here, with you, if that's what you want." "Is it what you want?" "I think so, but I'm also scared that I'm just hedging my bets, keeping one foot in my old life because I'm too afraid to fully commit to a new one." She sat beside him, taking his hand. "What if I take the consulting position and it's not enough? What if I end up resenting the compromise? Or what if I turn it down and 6 months from now I'm broke and miserable and wishing I'd been smarter?" Ethan turned to face her fully, both hands holding hers now. "Marianne, I can't tell you what to do. This has to be your choice. But I can tell you what I see when I look at you." "What do you see?" "I see someone who's brilliant and capable and so much stronger than she gives herself credit for. I see someone who made her father's company successful for 3 years, who navigated boardrooms full of men who didn't respect her, who built something real and lasting even if the board couldn't see it. And I see someone who's terrified of disappointing people, even people who aren't around anymore to be disappointed." Marianne's eyes filled with tears. "My father would hate what I'm doing, walking away from everything he built." "Maybe. Or maybe he'd be proud that you had the courage to choose your own path instead of just following his." "You didn't know my father." "No, but I know you, and the you I've gotten to know over the past month, the one who plays dinosaurs with my daughter and burns eggs and laughs at herself. That person deserves to be happy. Not just successful. Happy. What if I can't be happy without the company? What if it's too much a part of who I am?" "Then take the consulting position. Stay connected. There's no shame in that." "But you think I should walk away completely? I can hear it in your voice." Ethan sighed, running his free hand through his hair. "What I think doesn't matter. But since you asked, yeah, I think you should walk away. Not because the company's bad or because you weren't good at running it, but because every time you talk about it, you sound exhausted. Like it's this weight you're carrying that you can't quite put down. And the times I've seen you truly happy, truly yourself, it's never been when you're talking about work. It's been when you're here, doing simple things, making terrible eggs, reading stories to Lily, just being Marianne, not Marianne Whitmore, CEO." The tears spilled over now, tracking down Marianne's cheeks. "I'm so scared, Ethan. What if I choose wrong?" "Then you choose wrong, and we deal with it. But Marianne, you can't live your whole life trying to avoid mistakes. Sometimes you just have to jump and hope you land somewhere good." She leaned into him, and Ethan wrapped his arms around her, feeling her shake with silent sobs. They stayed like that for a long time, the house quiet around them, except for the familiar sounds that Ethan had come to associate with home. Finally, Marianne pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I need to pick up Lily from Mrs. Chen's." "I can get her." "No, I want to. I've missed her." They walked across the yard together, and when Mrs. Chen opened the door, Lily squealed and launched herself at Marianne. "You came back. You promised, and you came back." "Of course I came back, sweetheart. I told you I would." Mrs. Chen caught Ethan's eye, her expression knowing. "Why don't you let Lily stay for another hour? I was just about to make cookies, and she's been so helpful. Can I, Daddy? Please?" "Sure, Bug. Have fun." Back at the house, Marianne finally changed out of her suit, pulling on the jeans and sweater she'd left behind. She looked more like herself, less like the polished executive who'd walked into that boardroom. "I've been thinking," she said, sitting beside Ethan on the couch. About what makes me happy. Lily asked me that on Thursday and I couldn't answer, but I can now. Yeah? You make me happy. You and Lily, this house, the simplicity of just existing without performing, burning eggs and reading dinosaur books and not having to be anyone other than who I am in this moment. She took his hand. I don't need the company to feel valuable, Ethan. I need this. I need you. So you're turning down the consulting position? I'm going to call them tomorrow and tell them thanks, but no thanks. Clean break, fresh start, no safety nets. She smiled nervously. Terrifying, right? Absolutely terrifying, Ethan agreed. But also kind of brave. I'm not brave, I'm just tired of living for everyone else's expectations. That sounds pretty brave to me. They kissed then, properly this time, without the hesitation of that first night. Marianne's hands cupped his face, and Ethan pulled her closer, feeling the rightness of it settle into his bones. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. So what happens now? Marianne asked. I can't keep sleeping on your couch forever. Why not? Because it's killing my back, for one thing. And because if we're actually doing this, actually trying to make this work, we should probably talk about logistics, like where I'm going to live, what I'm going to do for work, how we explain this to Lily. One thing at a time, Ethan said, echoing his earlier advice. First, you make the call tomorrow and officially turn down the consulting position. Then we figure out the rest. Just like that? Just like that. Marianne laughed, shaking her head. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. You decide what you want, and then you work toward making it happen. And what do you want, Ethan? You keep asking me, but I haven't asked you. He looked at her, at this woman who'd crashed into his life during a thunderstorm and somehow managed to change everything, and found that the answer came easily. I want you to stay. Not as a guest, not temporarily. I want you to stay and be part of this family, messy and complicated as it might be. I want to wake up and know you're here. I want Lily to have someone else in her corner. I want to stop being so alone all the time. I want that too, Marianne whispered. So much it scares me. Good. Being scared means it matters. When Lily came home an hour later, covered in flour and chocolate chips, she found them still on the couch, Marianne curled into Ethan's side, both looking more peaceful than they had in days. Are you staying now? Lily asked Marianne. For real staying, not just visiting staying? Marianne looked at Ethan, then at Lily, and felt something settle in her chest. A decision. A choice. A new beginning. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm staying for real. Lily cheered, chocolate-smudged hands reaching for both of them, pulling them into a hug that was sticky and perfect, and felt exactly like home. Tuesday morning arrived with a sense of finality that Marianne hadn't expected. She woke on the couch for what she'd told herself would be one of the last times, her back protesting the lumpy cushions, but her heart surprisingly light. Today she would make the call that would sever her last official tie to Whitmore Development. Today she would choose, definitively and without reservation, a life she'd never imagined wanting. Ethan was already up, moving quietly in the kitchen. Marianne could smell coffee brewing, could hear the soft clink of mugs being set on the counter. She lay still for a moment, listening to these ordinary sounds of morning, and felt something close to contentment wash over her. I know you're awake, Ethan called softly. You breathe differently when you're awake. Marianne sat up, running her hands through her tangled hair. That's slightly creepy. Or observant. He appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee, handing her one. Sleep okay? As well as anyone can on a couch that's older than I am. She took a grateful sip of coffee. Is Lily still asleep? Miracle of miracles, yes. She was up late last night, too excited about you staying. Ethan sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. You nervous about the call? Terrified, but also relieved. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. They drank their coffee in comfortable silence, watching pale sunlight filter through the curtains. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. A car started. The world continued its morning routine, oblivious to the fact that Marianne's was about to fundamentally change. At 9 o'clock, after Lily had eaten breakfast and been set up with coloring books at the kitchen table, Marianne dialed her lawyer's number. Ethan stayed close, not hovering, but present, his hand resting on her lower back in silent support. "Marianne?" Harold Chen answered on the second ring. "I was hoping you'd call. Have you made a decision about the consulting position?" "I have." Marianne took a breath, feeling Ethan's hand press slightly firmer against her back. "I'm declining the offer, Harold. I appreciate the board's willingness to keep me involved, but I think a clean break is better for everyone." Silence stretched across the line. When Harold spoke again, his voice was tight with barely controlled frustration. "Marianne, I really wish you'd reconsider. This is an extremely generous offer given the circumstances. Walking away completely is short-sighted." "Maybe, but it's my decision to make." "What are you going to do? For work? For income? You can't just live off your inheritance indefinitely." "I'll figure it out." "That's not a plan. That's hope. And hope doesn't pay bills." Harold sighed heavily. "I've known you since you were 16 years old. I watched your father build this company. He'd want you to stay connected to his legacy." The words hit harder than Marianne expected, and for a moment doubt crept back in. But then Lily looked up from her coloring, gave Marianne a chocolate-smudged smile, and the doubt evaporated. "My father also taught me to make my own choices and live with the consequences," Marianne said firmly. "This is my choice, Harold. I need you to respect it, even if you don't agree with it." Another pause. "Very well. I'll inform the board, but Marianne, if you change your mind, I won't, but thank you for everything you've done for me and for my father." When she hung up, her hands were shaking. Ethan took the phone from her, set it aside, and pulled her into his arms. "You did it," he said into her hair. "I did it." Marianne laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "I just walked away from a six-figure salary and the last connection to my father's legacy. I must be out of my mind. Or you're finally thinking clearly." "Marianne made a big choice," Lily announced from the table, even though she couldn't possibly understand what had just happened. "That means we should celebrate. Can we have ice cream?" "It's 9:30 in the morning, Bug. Ice cream doesn't care about time, Daddy." Ethan looked at Marianne, one eyebrow raised. "She's not wrong." So they had ice cream for breakfast, sitting around the kitchen table like it was the most natural thing in the world. Lily chattered about her coloring project, a dinosaur family living in a house that looked suspiciously like Ethan's. Marianne listened, contributing observations about the dinosaur's interior design choices, and felt the knot of anxiety in her chest slowly unwind. Later that morning, reality began to assert itself in practical ways. Marianne needed to go back to her penthouse and actually move out, not just grab a suitcase worth of clothes. She needed to sort through her belongings, decide what to keep and what to let go, close that chapter of her life properly. "I can come with you," Ethan offered when she mentioned it. "Help you pack, carry boxes, whatever you need. Don't you have work? I can reschedule. This is more important." They drove to the Whitmore building together, Lily strapped into her booster seat in the back of Ethan's truck, singing nonsense songs about dinosaurs and ice cream. The doorman's eyebrows rose when he saw them, the CEO who'd been displaced, the handyman who'd become a regular visitor, and now a small child. But he was professional enough not to comment. The penthouse felt different now. Too large, too empty, too much like a museum of a life Marianne no longer wanted. She stood in the middle of the living room, looking around at the expensive furniture and carefully curated art, and felt nothing but relief that she was leaving. "Where do we start?" Ethan asked, always practical. "Honestly, I'm not sure I want most of this." Marianne gestured around. "The furniture came with the place. The art was my father's, not mine. Most of the clothes in my closet are work clothes I won't need anymore." "What do you want to keep?" Marianne walked through the space, really looking at it for the first time in years. In her bedroom, she found a photo album her mother had made before she died, pictures of Marianne as a child, her parents smiling and young and happy. In the study, she found the first deal folder from Whitmore Development, her father's handwritten notes in the margins. In a drawer in the kitchen, she found a set of measuring spoons her grandmother had given her, never used but kept out of sentiment. "These things," she said, gathering them, "and my books, and maybe some of the kitchen stuff, even though I don't know how to use half of it. We'll figure it out together." They spent the afternoon packing boxes, Lily helping by putting random objects in random containers and declaring them organized. At one point, she found a designer handbag worth more than Ethan made in a month and declared it the perfect house for her toy dinosaurs. Lily, that's a very expensive purse, Marianne said, trying not to laugh. But the dinosaurs like it. Look how happy they are. The dinosaurs, shoved unceremoniously into the leather bag, did not look particularly happy, but Marianne didn't have the heart to argue. By early evening, they'd filled Ethan's truck twice, hauling boxes back to Maple Street and trying to find space for Marianne's belongings in a house that was already cramped. Books were stacked in corners, kitchen equipment crowded onto counters, clothes hung in a closet that definitely wasn't meant for two people's wardrobes. "This is ridiculous," Marianne said, surveying the chaos in Ethan's bedroom. "There's no way all my stuff is going to fit." "So we get rid of some of it, or we get creative with storage." Or, Marianne stopped, the words catching in her throat. "Or what? Or we find a bigger place." Eventually, when we're ready, Ethan looked at her and something shifted in his expression. "Are we talking about moving in together? Like, officially?" "I'm already living here, on your couch, but still. The couch isn't a long-term solution." "No, it's not." Marianne sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly nervous. "Is this too fast? We've only really been together for a week. Most people would say this is insane." "Most people aren't us." Ethan sat beside her, taking her hand. "But Marianne, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. For Lily's sake, if nothing else." "What does doing it right look like?" "I don't know. I've never done this before. But I think it means being honest about what we want and what we need. It means not making promises we can't keep. And it means being a team, not just two people living in the same space." "I can do that," Marianne said. "I want to do that." "Okay, then let's start with the practical stuff. You can't keep sleeping on the couch. It's killing your back, and it's weird now that we're actually together." "Are you asking me to share your bed?" "I'm saying it's an option, if you want. No pressure." Marianne looked around the small bedroom, at the mismatched furniture and the crack in the ceiling and the window that didn't quite close all the way. It was nothing like her penthouse with its king-size bed and luxury linens and climate control, but it was Ethan's space, and he was offering to make it theirs. "I want," she said simply. That night, after Lily was asleep and the house had settled into its evening quiet, Marianne carried her belongings into Ethan's bedroom. It didn't take long. She'd pared down to the essentials, letting go of the designer clothes and expensive accessories that belonged to her old life. What remained fit easily into half the closet and 2 drawers of the battered dresser. They got ready for bed in awkward silence, suddenly shy now that they were actually doing this. Ethan brushed his teeth while Marianne changed in the bedroom. She brushed her teeth while he pulled on sweatpants and an old t-shirt. They moved around each other carefully, like dancers learning new choreography. Finally, they were both in bed, the lamp still on, neither quite sure what came next. "This is weird, right?" Marianne said. "It's not just me?" "Definitely weird. I shared a bed with exactly 2 people before you, my college boyfriend and my ex-fiancé. Both relationships ended badly. I've shared a bed with one person, Lily's mother, also ended badly. We're quite a pair." "Yeah, we are." Ethan reached over and turned off the lamp, plunging the room into darkness. The bed was small, too small really for 2 adults, and they had to lie close to fit. Marianne's head found the hollow of Ethan's shoulder, her arm draped across his chest. His hand rested on her hip, warm and steady. "This okay?" he asked. "More than okay." They lay like that for a while, listening to each other breathe, feeling the strangeness of shared space slowly transform into something comfortable. "Ethan?" Marianne whispered. "Yeah?" "Thank you. For letting me stay. For not giving up on me when I was spiraling about the company. For making me believe I could choose something different." "You did that yourself. I just held the door open." "Still, thank you." He kissed the top of her head, and Marianne felt herself relaxing into sleep, safer and more at peace than she'd been in years. The next few weeks were an exercise in adjustment. Marianne had to learn the rhythms of the household, when Lily needed help with homework, when Ethan had early morning jobs, how to navigate the ancient washing machine that only worked if you hit it in exactly the right spot. She burned fewer eggs but still couldn't make toast without setting off the smoke detector at least once a week. Money became a pressing concern faster than either of them had anticipated. Marianne's inheritance would last a while, but she'd never been someone who could sit idle. She needed purpose, needed to contribute. "I could look for a job," she said one evening while washing dishes with Ethan. "Something in real estate, maybe. Use my experience." "Do you want to work in real estate?" "Not particularly, but it's what I know." "So learn something new." Marianne handed him a plate to dry. "Like what?" "What did you want to be before your father died and you inherited the company?" The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in years. "I wanted to be a teacher, actually, elementary education. I was going to get my degree and work in underprivileged schools." "So why don't you?" "I'm 32 years old, Ethan. I can't just go back to school." "Why not?" She didn't have a good answer for that. The idea took root in her mind, growing over the following days. She researched teaching programs, looked into certification requirements, calculated costs and timelines. It would take 2 years to get certified if she went full-time, longer if she studied part-time. "It's insane," she told Mrs. Chen over tea one afternoon. The older woman had become a confidant, someone Marianne could talk to without judgment. "I'd be starting a whole new career in my 30s, taking on student loans, entering a field that notoriously doesn't pay well." "But would it make you happy?" Mrs. Chen asked, the same question Lily had posed weeks ago. "I think it might." "Then it's not insane. It's brave." Marianne enrolled in a teaching program at the local community college, starting with night classes so she could still help with Lily during the day. Ethan adjusted his work schedule to be home for dinner, and they developed a new routine, Marianne studying at the kitchen table while Ethan helped Lily with her reading, all three of them existing in comfortable parallel productivity. But not everything was smooth. Living together meant seeing each other's flaws and frustrations, not just the polished versions they'd presented during courtship. Ethan had a tendency to shut down when stressed, going quiet and distant instead of talking through problems. Marianne had been raised in wealth and sometimes made assumptions about money that hurt Ethan's pride. Their first real fight happened on a Thursday night, 6 weeks after Marianne had officially moved in. Ethan came home from a particularly frustrating job, a client who'd refused to pay for completed work, claiming it wasn't up to standard, and found Marianne had bought new living room furniture. "What's this?" he asked, staring at the sleek couch and matching armchair that had replaced his old, comfortable set. "I got us some new furniture. The old couch was falling apart, and I thought—" "You thought you'd just replace it without asking me." Marianne blinked, surprised by his tone. "I was trying to help. The springs were literally poking through the cushions." "So you went out and bought expensive furniture that we can't afford?" "I can afford it. I paid for it with my own money." "Your money, right." Ethan set down his toolbox harder than necessary. "Because you have money, and I don't. So you get to make decisions about our home without consulting me." "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it? You saw something you didn't like, so you fixed it. Just like you fix everything else around here that doesn't meet your standards." The words landed like blows, and Marianne felt her own anger rising. "That's not fair. I'm trying to contribute, trying to make this place nicer for all of us. We were fine before you decided we needed to be nicer." "Were you? Or were you just so used to barely getting by that you forgot what comfortable looked like?" The silence that followed was crushing. Ethan's face went carefully blank, and Marianne immediately wanted to take the words back. "Ethan, I didn't mean— I need to go check on Lily." He walked past her without another word, leaving Marianne standing alone in the living room with the new furniture that suddenly felt like a mistake. They didn't speak for the rest of the evening. Ethan helped Lily with her bath and bedtime routine while Marianne hid in the bedroom, furious and hurt, and not entirely sure who was right. When Ethan finally came to bed, the space between them felt like a chasm. "I'm sorry," Marianne said into the darkness. "What I said about barely getting by, that was cruel." "You weren't wrong, though." Ethan's voice was rough. "We were barely getting by. We still are, most months. And having you here with your education and your inheritance and your ability to just buy new furniture when you feel like it, it highlights exactly how different we are. I don't care about the differences. Maybe you should. Because eventually you're going to wake up and realize you gave up a penthouse and a career for a life where we worry about the electric bill and eat spaghetti 3 times a week because it's cheap. Marianne rolled over, finding Ethan's face in the dim light from the street lamp outside. Is that what you think? That I'm going to regret this? I think it's realistic to consider the possibility. Well, stop considering it. I'm here because I want to be here, not because I'm settling or slumming or whatever you think is going on in my head. She reached for his hand. And I'm sorry about the furniture. I should have asked you first. I just saw it on sale and thought it would be nice to have something that didn't hurt your back when you sat on it. It is nice, Ethan admitted quietly. Really nice, actually. I just felt undermined, like I was making decisions about our home without you. Yeah. I won't do it again. We're a team, which means we make these choices together, even furniture choices. Ethan pulled her closer, and Marianne felt the tension between them finally ease. I'm sorry, too, for shutting down instead of just telling you how I felt. We're both learning. Yeah, we are. They made love that night, slow and careful, rebuilding the connection that their fight had threatened. Afterwards, wrapped in each other's arms, Marianne felt more certain than ever that she'd made the right choice, not because it was easy, but because it was real. The following weeks brought new challenges and small victories. Marianne aced her first exam in her teaching program. Ethan landed a contract for regular maintenance work at a local apartment complex, providing steady income for the first time in years. Lily lost another tooth and declared that the tooth fairy left better money now that Marianne lived with them, which led to an awkward conversation about appropriate tooth fairy rates. They celebrated Thanksgiving together, their first holiday as a makeshift family. Marianne attempted to cook a turkey using instructions from YouTube and nearly set the kitchen on fire. Ethan took over, producing a meal that was simple but delicious, while Marianne made side dishes under his careful supervision and Lily created elaborate place cards for their table of 3. What are we thankful for? Lily asked as they sat down to eat, copying something she'd learned at the library's story time. I'm thankful for you, Bug, Ethan said, and for Marianne, and for this family we're building together. I'm thankful for dinosaurs and ice cream and that Marianne stayed, Lily announced. They both looked at Marianne, waiting for her contribution. She looked around the cramped kitchen with its mismatched chairs and the smoke still lingering from her turkey disaster, at Ethan with his patient smile and Lily with her gap-toothed grin, and felt her throat tighten with emotion. I'm thankful for second chances, she said, and for finding a home I didn't know I was looking for. It was Lily who started calling Marianne Mom first, casually and without fanfare. They were at the park, Marianne pushing Lily on the swings, when Lily shouted, Higher, Mom! Push me higher! Marianne froze, her hand stilling on the swing. Lily looked back, confused by the sudden stop. What's wrong? You called me Mom. Lily considered this. Is that okay? Mrs. Chen's granddaughter calls her stepmom Mom, and I thought since you live with us and help take care of me and love Daddy, that maybe you could be my mom too, but if you don't want to be, I can just call you Marianne. Marianne's vision blurred with tears. She'd never thought about being a mother, had never particularly wanted children of her own, but Lily had become hers anyway, somewhere in the chaos of dinosaur games and burned breakfasts and bedtime stories. I would love to be your mom, Marianne managed, if you want me to be. I do. Can you push me higher now? That evening, Marianne told Ethan what had happened, still not quite believing it. How do you feel about it? He asked carefully. Terrified. Honored. Like I've been given something precious and fragile and I'm going to mess it up somehow. Welcome to parenthood. That feeling never goes away. Does it bother you, her calling me Mom? Ethan pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. It makes me happy. Lily deserves to have a mother who wants her, and you clearly want her. I do, more than I ever thought possible. But happiness was complicated by reality when, 2 days later, Ethan received an email from Jessica, his ex-girlfriend, Lily's biological mother, who'd been silent for almost 5 years, suddenly wanted back in their lives. Ethan stared at his laptop screen, reading the email for the 3rd time, hoping the words would somehow change. They didn't. Ethan, I know this is out of the blue. I know I have no right to ask anything of you after what I did. But I've been thinking about Lily a lot lately. I'm in a better place now. Stable job, therapy, my life together. I'd like to meet her. Talk to you about maybe having some kind of relationship with my daughter. I'm staying with my sister in Hartford. Please call me. Jessica. What's wrong? Marianne's voice came from the doorway. She was holding a textbook, obviously on her way to study, but concern had replaced the focused expression she usually wore. Ethan gestured to the screen, unable to find words. Marianne came closer, reading over his shoulder. He felt her stiffen. She wants to see Lily. Apparently, after 5 years of nothing, she just shows up asking for a relationship? The anger in Marianne's voice matched what Ethan was feeling, but underneath it, he heard fear. The same fear that was currently eating a hole in his stomach. I don't know what to do, he admitted. Part of me wants to delete the email and pretend it never happened, but the other part knows Lily deserves to know her mother, if Jessica's actually serious this time. Or she could hurt Lily all over again when she disappears in another few months. Yeah, that too. They sat in silence, the laptop screen casting blue light across their faces. From down the hall came the sound of Lily singing to herself, completely unaware that her world might be about to shift again. What are you going to do? Marianne asked finally. I don't know. Call her, I guess. Hear what she has to say. Ethan closed the laptop. But Marianne, whatever happens, you're Lily's mom now. Jessica being back doesn't change that. Doesn't it? I'm not her real mother. I'm just the woman who's been playing house for the past few months. Don't do that. Don't diminish what you are to her because you're scared. Marianne stood abruptly, her textbook clutched against her chest. I need to study. We can talk about this later. She left before Ethan could respond, and he heard the bedroom door close with just a little too much force. He sat alone in the glow of the computer screen, feeling the foundation of their carefully built life starting to crack. He called Jessica the next morning while Lily was at Mrs. Chen's and Marianne was at class. His hand shook as he dialed the number she'd included in the email. Ethan? Jessica's voice was the same, but different too. More mature, maybe, more careful. Yeah, it's me. Thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would. I'm still not sure I should have. Ethan leaned against the kitchen counter, needing the support. What do you want, Jessica? I want to know my daughter. I want to try to be part of her life, if you'll let me. You had that chance 5 years ago. You chose to leave. I know. Her voice broke slightly. I know, and there's no excuse for it. I was 20 years old, Ethan. I was terrified and overwhelmed, and I handled it in the worst possible way. But I've spent 5 years in therapy working through why I ran, and I'm ready now. I'm ready to be a mother. Lily doesn't need a mother who's ready. She needs someone who's going to stay, who's not going to disappear the minute things get hard again. I'm not going to disappear. I promise. Your promises don't mean much to me anymore. Silence stretched between them, filled with all the hurt and anger and betrayal that Ethan had been carrying for years. Can I at least meet her? Jessica asked quietly. Just once. If she doesn't want to see me again after that, I'll respect it. But Ethan, please, I need to try. Every instinct Ethan had screamed at him to say no, to protect Lily from potential heartbreak, to keep their small family intact and safe. But he thought about Lily, asking about her mother sometimes, wondering why she didn't have one like other kids. He thought about the right every child had to know their parents, even flawed ones. I need to talk to Lily first, see if she even wants to meet you, and if she does, it's supervised. You don't get to be alone with her until you've proven you're actually going to stick around. That's fair, that's more than fair. And Jessica, if you hurt her, if you make promises you can't keep and then disappear again, I will make sure you never get another chance. Understood? Understood. After he hung up, Ethan sat at the kitchen table for a long time, his head in his hands, trying to figure out how to tell his 5-year-old daughter that the mother who'd abandoned her wanted back into her life. Marianne came home to find him still sitting there. She set her bag down carefully, her expression guarded. You called her. How did you know? You have that look, like you've just made a decision you're not sure about. She sat across from him. What did she say? Ethan relayed the conversation, watching Marianne's face carefully. She listened without interrupting, but he could see her jaw tightening, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. So you're going to let her meet Lily? If Lily wants to meet her, yes. And if Lily gets attached and Jessica leaves again, then we deal with it, together. Ethan reached across the table, taking Marianne's hand. I know you're scared. I am too. But I can't keep Lily from her biological mother just because we're afraid of what might happen. I'm not afraid of what might happen. I'm afraid of losing her. Marianne's voice cracked. Lily's been calling me Mom, Ethan. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm actually good at something that matters. And now Jessica comes back and I'm just, what? The woman her dad's dating? The temporary stand-in until her real mother shows up? You are her real mother, the one who's been here, who helps with homework and makes terrible eggs and reads dinosaur books until your voice gives out. That's real, Marianne. That matters. But I'm not the one who gave birth to her. I'm not the one she's going to wonder about when she's older, the one she'll search for if I'm not enough. Ethan stood, moving around the table to pull Marianne into his arms. She resisted for a moment, then collapsed against him, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. You are enough, he said fiercely. You have always been enough. And whatever happens with Jessica, that doesn't change. Lily's heart is big enough for both of you. What if it's not? What if she chooses Jessica? Kids don't choose parents like that. It's not a competition. But even as he said it, Ethan wasn't entirely sure he believed it. That evening, after dinner, Ethan asked Lily to come sit with him on the couch. Marianne hovered nearby, pretending to clean the already clean kitchen, clearly listening. Bug, I need to talk to you about something important. Lily looked up from the dinosaurs she'd been walking across the coffee table. Am I in trouble? No, nothing like that. I got an email from someone you've never met, your birth mother, Jessica. Lily's eyes widened. My real mom? The one who went away? She's your biological mother, yes, but Marianne is your real mom, the one who's here with you every day. Okay. Lily processed this with the quick adaptability of childhood. What did she want? She wants to meet you. She says she's sorry for leaving and she wants to try to be part of your life now. Why did she leave in the first place? It was the question Ethan had been dreading. How did you explain to a 5-year-old that her mother had been too scared and immature to stay? She was very young and very scared. She made a choice that she regrets now. Lily was quiet for a moment, her small face serious. Does Marianne want me to meet her? From the kitchen came the sound of a dish clattering into the sink. Ethan glanced over to see Marianne standing frozen, clearly not expecting to be part of the conversation. Come here, Marianne, Lily called. You should be here for this talk, too. Marianne came slowly, sitting on Lily's other side. The little girl looked between them, then took both their hands. I want to meet Jessica, she announced, because I'm curious about her. But Marianne is my mom, the one I want to keep forever. Is that okay? Marianne's breath hitched, tears spilling down her cheeks. That's more than okay, sweetheart. Good. Can we have ice cream now? The meeting was arranged for the following Saturday at a neutral location, the park where Ethan had taken Lily countless times before. Jessica would be there at 2 o'clock. Ethan and Marianne would both be present. The visit would last 1 hour, no more. The days leading up to it were tense. Marianne threw herself into studying, staying up late hunched over textbooks, avoiding conversations about what was coming. Ethan worked more hours than necessary, taking jobs he normally would have turned down. Lily seemed to be the only one not spiraling with anxiety, more excited about the novelty of meeting someone new than worried about what it meant. Saturday arrived cold and clear, the kind of November day where the sun was bright but provided no warmth. Ethan dressed Lily in her favorite purple jacket and the dinosaur t-shirt she'd insisted on wearing. Marianne changed outfits 3 times before settling on jeans and a sweater, looking beautiful and terrified in equal measure. They arrived at the park early. Ethan pushed Lily on the swings while Marianne sat on a bench, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. At exactly 2 o'clock, a woman approached across the grass. Jessica looked different than Ethan remembered. Her hair was shorter, styled professionally. She wore clothes that suggested stability, nice but practical. She walked with her arms wrapped around herself, her expression nervous but hopeful. Ethan, she said softly as she got closer. Then her eyes found Lily on the swing, and her breath caught audibly. She's so big. 5 years will do that. Jessica's gaze shifted to Marianne, and something complicated passed across her face. "You must be Marianne. Ethan mentioned you on the phone." Marianne stood, and Ethan felt pride at how composed she managed to appear. "I am. And you're Jessica. I know this must be strange for you." Strange is one word for it. The tension could have been cut with a knife. Lily, sensing something important happening, stopped swinging and came over to investigate. "Are you Jessica?" she asked with a child's directness. "I am." Jessica knelt down, bringing herself to Lily's eye level. Her hands trembled. "Hi, Lily. I'm your biological mother. I know that probably doesn't mean much to you since we've never met, but I'm really glad to see you." Lily studied her seriously. "You look like the picture Daddy keeps in his desk drawer." "He kept a picture?" "Just one. From before I was born." Lily tilted her head. "Why did you leave?" The question hung in the cold air. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared and young, and I made a terrible mistake." "I'm so sorry, Lily." "It's okay. I have Daddy and Marianne now. They take good care of me. I can see that. You look happy and healthy and loved." Jessica wiped her eyes. "That's all I wanted to know. That you were okay." They walked around the park together, Jessica asking careful questions about Lily's life, Lily answering with the uncomplicated honesty of childhood. She talked about dinosaurs and school lessons with Daddy, and how Marianne was teaching her to cook, but they mostly just made smoke. She showed Jessica her missing tooth and explained the current tooth fairy rates. Ethan and Marianne walked behind them, close enough to intervene if needed, but giving them space. Marianne's hand found Ethan's, gripping tight. "She's good with her," Marianne said quietly. "Does that scare you?" "Terrifies me." After 45 minutes, Jessica checked her watch. "I should probably go. I don't want to overstay." "Do you want to come back?" Lily asked. "To visit again?" Jessica looked at Ethan, the question clear in her eyes. He nodded slowly. "I'd like that very much, if it's okay with your dad and Marianne." "We can talk about it," Ethan said carefully. "Set up regular visits, maybe. See how it goes." "Thank you." Jessica knelt down one more time, her eyes level with Lily's. "Thank you for giving me a chance. And Lily, I know I'm your biological mother, but Marianne is your mom, the one who's here every day. Don't ever forget that she's the one who chose you." Lily threw her arms around Jessica's neck in a quick, fierce hug, then ran back to Marianne, grabbing her hand. "Can we get hot chocolate now? I'm cold." They said goodbye to Jessica and walked to the small cafe at the edge of the park. Lily chattered about the meeting, processing it aloud the way children do, while Marianne and Ethan exchanged looks over her head. That night, after Lily was asleep, they finally talked about what had happened. "She seems genuine," Marianne admitted grudgingly. "I wanted to hate her. I wanted her to be awful so I could justify keeping her away from Lily. But she was just sad and sorry." "Does that change how you feel?" "About Jessica? Maybe. About being Lily's mom? Not even a little bit." Marianne turned to face him. "When Lily ran back to me after hugging Jessica, when she chose to hold my hand, Ethan, I've never felt anything like that. Like I'd won something I didn't even know I was competing for." "You're not competing. Jessica was right about that. You're the one who chose Lily. That means everything. I love her so much it scares me sometimes. Her and you. This whole messy, imperfect life we're building." Ethan pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling the solid reality of her in his arms. "It is messy and imperfect, but it's ours." The weeks following Jessica's visit fell into a new rhythm. She came every other Saturday, always supervised, always respectful of boundaries. Lily began to relax around her, starting to see Jessica as a friend more than a mysterious figure from her past. Jessica never pushed for more time than was offered, never overstepped, never made promises she couldn't keep. Slowly, carefully, they were building something that worked. Not a traditional family, but a family nonetheless. Christmas approached, bringing with it decisions about traditions and celebrations. Marianne went overboard with decorations, transforming the small house into something out of a holiday catalog. Ethan pretended to complain about the expense, but secretly loved coming home to lights and garland and the enormous tree that barely fit in their living room. On Christmas Eve, they invited Mrs. Chen over for dinner. She arrived with homemade cookies and a knowing smile. "You three look happy," she observed, watching Ethan and Marianne work together in the kitchen while Lily arranged ornaments on the tree for the 100th time. "We are," Marianne said, and meant it. After dinner, after Mrs. Chen had gone home and Lily had finally been convinced to go to bed, despite her excitement about Santa, Ethan, and Marianne sat by the tree, the colored lights casting patterns across their faces. "I have something for you," Ethan said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Marianne's eyes widened. "Ethan, it's not what you think." Well, it kind of is, but also not exactly. He was rambling, nervous in a way she rarely saw him. "Just open it." Inside the box was a simple silver key. "It's to the house," Ethan explained. "I know you already have a key technically since you live here, but this one is different. I had it engraved." Marianne lifted the key, turning it to catch the light. Along the shaft, in tiny letters, were the words, "Home is where you are." "You and Lily are my home now," Ethan continued. "Not this house, not this town. You. And I know we've only been together for a few months, and there's still so much we're figuring out, but I want you to know that you belong here, permanently, if you want." "If I want?" Marianne laughed, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan, I gave up a penthouse and a company and everything I thought I knew about my life to be here. Of course I want this. I want you and Lily and terrible eggs and a couch that's too small and all of it." "The couch isn't that small." "It's definitely that small." They kissed under the Christmas lights, and Marianne felt something settle deep in her chest. A certainty, a sense of rightness that she'd been searching for her entire life without knowing it. "I have something for you too," she said, pulling away slightly. "It's not wrapped or anything, but I found out this week that I got accepted into the accelerated teaching program. I start student teaching in January." "Marianne, that's amazing." "It's terrifying. I'm going to be teaching actual children. What if I'm terrible at it?" "You won't be. You're incredible with Lily." "Lily's different. She's ours. And those kids will be yours too, in a way. You're going to change lives, Marianne. I know it." Christmas morning brought the chaos of wrapping paper and excited shrieks, and Lily declaring that Santa had definitely upgraded his present quality since Marianne moved in. They spent the day in pajamas, eating too much food and watching holiday movies and just being together. Jessica called in the afternoon to wish Lily a Merry Christmas, and Lily chattered excitedly about her presents before handing the phone to Ethan. "Thank you," Jessica said quietly, "for letting me be part of this, even in a small way. You're her mother. You deserve a chance to be in her life. But I'm not her mom, not the way Marianne is. I'm making peace with that." After hanging up, Ethan found Marianne in the kitchen, starting to clean up the disaster that was their post-Christmas meal preparation. "That was surprisingly mature of her," Marianne said, having clearly overheard. "People can change. We're proof of that." "Are we? Changed, I mean?" "I think we're becoming who we were always meant to be. Just took us a while to figure it out." Winter turned to spring. Marianne started her student teaching placement at an elementary school across town, working with second graders who adored her despite her occasional mistakes. Ethan's business grew steadily, helped by word-of-mouth referrals and Marianne's tendency to tell everyone she met about her talented handyman boyfriend. They celebrated Lily's 6th birthday with a dinosaur-themed party in their backyard, Mrs. Chen and Jessica both in attendance, navigating the awkwardness of their unique family structure with grace. Lily, oblivious to any tension, declared it the best birthday ever. On a warm evening in May, Ethan came home from work to find Marianne sitting on the front porch, a contemplative look on her face. "Everything okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. "I got a job offer today, full-time teaching position at Southtown Elementary, starting next fall." "That's incredible. Why don't you look happier about it?" "Because it pays $38,000 a year, which is basically nothing compared to what I used to make." "But you'll be doing something you love." "Will I? Or am I just playing at being a teacher because I'm trying to prove I can be normal?" She shook her head. "I don't know, Ethan. Sometimes I wonder if I made a huge mistake giving up the company." "Do you miss it?" The work, the corporate life. Marianne was quiet for a long moment, really thinking about it. No, I missed the security of knowing I could pay bills without worrying. I missed the certainty of a career path. But the actual work, the politics and stress and constant performance, I don't miss that at all. Then take the teaching job. We'll figure out the money. We're already figuring out the money. We've been figuring it out for months. She turned to look at him. I want to contribute more, Ethan. I want to pull my weight. You do pull your weight. You watch Lily so I can work. You cook dinner, clean the house, help with homework. That has value too. Unpaid value. Since when did we start measuring everything in dollars? It was a fair question, and Marianne didn't have a good answer. She'd spent so long in a world where worth was calculated in salary and bonuses that she'd forgotten there were other ways to measure a life well lived. I'm taking the job, she decided, and we're going to make it work, even if it means we're eating spaghetti 5 times a week instead of 3. I can live with that. Summer arrived with its long days and warm nights. They spent weekends at the park, evenings in the backyard, mornings sleeping in later than they should. Life had found its rhythm, comfortable and familiar. One Saturday in July, Marianne was playing with Lily in the backyard when she heard raised voices from inside the house. She found Ethan on the phone, his expression tight with barely controlled anger. That's not acceptable, Mr. Harrison. We had an agreement. I did the work. You pay the invoice. A pause. I don't care that you're disputing the quality. The work was completed to code and you signed off on it. Another pause, longer this time. Fine. I'll see you in small claims court. He hung up, his hands shaking with frustration. What happened? Marianne asked. Client refusing to pay. Says the work wasn't up to his standards, even though he approved everything along the way. Ethan ran his hands through his hair. It's $800. Money we need. And now I'm going to have to take him to court and hope the judge sides with me. Can I help? I could look at the contract, see if... I don't need you to fix this, Marianne. I can handle my own business problems. The words came out harsher than intended, and Ethan immediately regretted them. But Marianne had already taken a step back, her expression shuddering. Right. Of course. You can handle it. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I was offering to help as your partner, not because I think you're incapable. There's a difference. She walked out before he could apologize, leaving Ethan alone with his anger and embarrassment. They didn't fight often, but when they did, it usually circled back to the same core issue. Ethan's pride versus Marianne's desire to contribute, her money versus their money, the fundamental differences in how they'd been raised and what they'd learned about worth and value. That evening, after Lily was in bed, they finally talked it through. I'm sorry, Ethan said, for snapping at you. You were trying to help, and I was a jerk about it. You were. But I get it. You're used to handling everything on your own. Doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it understandable. Marianne sat beside him on the bed, taking his hand. We're going to keep having versions of this fight until we figure out how to actually be partners in every sense of the word. Not just the romantic stuff, but the practical day-to-day life stuff, too. I know. I'm working on it. So am I. They sat in silence for a while, shoulders touching, both thinking about the path they'd traveled and the road still ahead. Ethan, Marianne said finally, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret it? Me being here? Because sometimes I wonder if your life would be simpler if you just stayed in your comfortable routine with Lily, not dealing with all the complications I brought with me. Ethan turned to face her fully, his hands coming up to cup her face. Marianne Whitmore, you are the best complication that ever happened to me. Yes, my life was simpler before you. It was also lonelier and smaller and so much emptier than I realized. You didn't just crash into my life, you expanded it, made it bigger and brighter and so much more than I ever thought it could be. Even with all the fights and adjustments and learning curves, especially with those, because they mean we're building something real, not some fairy tale that falls apart the first time things get hard. Marianne kissed him then, slow and deep, pouring everything she couldn't quite say into the connection between them. August brought Marianne's 30th birthday, which they celebrated with a small party in the backyard. Mrs. Chen brought her famous pot roast. Jessica came, bringing a thoughtful gift and staying just long enough to be polite. Lily made a card covered in glitter and dinosaur stickers that Marianne declared was the best present she'd ever received. As summer faded into fall, Marianne started preparing for her first year of teaching. The nerves were intense, but so was the excitement. She decorated her classroom with Ethan and Lily's help, creating a space that was welcoming and warm and uniquely hers. The night before her first day, she couldn't sleep. "What if they hate me?" she whispered into the darkness. "What if I'm terrible at this and I've wasted a year of our lives preparing for a career I'm not cut out for?" "Then you'll figure it out and try something else," Ethan said. "But Marianne, you're not going to be terrible. You're going to be exactly what those kids need." She wasn't sure she believed him, but his confidence helped. The first week of teaching was brutal. She came home exhausted, overwhelmed, questioning everything. But by the second week, something shifted. She started to find her rhythm, to connect with her students, to see the impact she could have. "Mrs. Myers read us the best story today," she overheard one of her students telling their parent at pickup. "She does all the voices and makes us laugh." Mrs. Myers. The name settled over Marianne like a warm blanket. She and Ethan weren't married. They'd talked about it, but decided they weren't in any rush. But her students assumed she was Mrs., and she'd never corrected them. Now she wondered if maybe she should make it official. That night, she brought it up over dinner. "What would you think about getting married?" she asked casually, passing Lily the green beans. Ethan nearly choked on his water. "What?" "Married. You know, legal partnership, shared last name, the whole thing." "Are you proposing to me?" "I'm floating the idea. There's a difference." Lily bounced in her seat. "Are you getting married? Can I be the flower girl? Can we have a dinosaur cake?" "Slow down, Bug," Ethan said, but he was smiling. "Marianne and I need to talk about this first." Later, after Lily was asleep, they revisited the conversation. "Were you serious?" Ethan asked. "About getting married?" "I think so. I mean, we're already living as a family. We're raising Lily together. We've merged our lives in every way that matters. The legal part is just a formality at this point." "The legal part means something, though. It's a commitment, a promise." "Haven't we already made those promises? Every day we choose to stay, we're committing to this." "True. But saying it out loud, making it official, that's different." Marianne took his hand, lacing their fingers together. "Then let's say it out loud. I love you, Ethan Myers. I love the life we've built and the family we've become. I want to marry you, legally and officially and in front of everyone we know. I want your last name and joint tax returns and the whole complicated, messy, beautiful package." Ethan pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "I love you too. And yes." "Yes?" "Yes, I'll marry you. But next time, I get to be the one who proposes. You've stolen all my romantic gestures." They were married on a Saturday in October, exactly 1 year after Marianne had first shown up on Ethan's doorstep with a suitcase and a desperate need for somewhere to belong. The ceremony was small, held in their backyard with the fall leaves providing a canopy of gold and red. Mrs. Chen officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. Lily served as both flower girl and ring bearer, taking her job very seriously. Jessica came, sitting in the back, crying quietly into a tissue. It was strange having her there, but also right. She was part of their story, part of what had brought them all to this moment. Marianne wore a simple white dress she'd found at a consignment shop. Ethan wore his only suit, cleaned and pressed with Lily's help. They spoke vows they'd written themselves, promises about choosing each other every day, about building a home together, about being a team through whatever came next. When they kissed, Lily cheered loudly, and Mrs. Chen declared them husband and wife and family, now and always. The reception was potluck in the backyard, neighbors and friends bringing dishes and well wishes. They danced to music from someone's phone speaker, ate cake that was slightly lopsided because Marianne had insisted on making it herself, and celebrated the strange, unexpected journey that had brought them together. As the sun set and guests began to leave, Ethan found Marianne sitting on the porch steps, looking out at their small yard and the house that had become home. "Happy?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Deliriously. You?" "More than I ever thought possible." Lily came out in her pajamas, having been put to bed but unable to stay there during the excitement. She squeezed between them, one small hand in each of theirs. "We're a real family now," she announced. "Officially." "We were a real family before," Marianne said. "The wedding just made it fancy." "I like fancy." They sat together as the last of the daylight faded. Three people who'd found each other against all odds, who'd chosen to stay when leaving would have been easier, who'd built something beautiful from broken pieces. Life continued its forward motion. Marianne's first year of teaching was challenging but rewarding. Ethan's business grew enough that he could finally hire an assistant, taking some of the pressure off. Lily thrived in first grade, her reading skills advancing rapidly under Marianne's patient tutoring. Jessica maintained her bi-weekly visits, slowly building a relationship with Lily that was warm but appropriately boundaried. She'd started dating someone, she told them one Saturday, a man who knew about her past and supported her desire to be part of her daughter's life. "I'm happy for you," Marianne said, and meant it. The house on Maple Street remained cramped and imperfect. The radiators still hissed, the floors still creaked, the bathroom still only had one working sink. But it was full of life and laughter, and the kind of love that couldn't be measured in square footage or property value. On a spring evening 2 years after their wedding, Marianne came home from a parent-teacher conference to find Ethan and Lily in the backyard, working on what appeared to be a garden bed. "What's this?" she asked, setting down her bag. "We're planting vegetables," Lily explained. "Daddy says we can grow our own tomatoes and lettuce and save money on groceries. Plus, it's a good learning opportunity for Lily," Ethan added. "Science, responsibility, patience." Marianne knelt beside them in the dirt, not caring about her work clothes, and examined their handiwork. "It's perfect. Can we plant herbs too? I've always wanted to cook with fresh basil." "Your cooking is still mostly smoke and chaos, babe." "But it's getting better. I only set off the smoke detector twice last week." They worked together until the sun set, getting dirt under their fingernails and discussing what else they might plant. Lily suggested a dinosaur-shaped garden, which led to a lengthy debate about the physics of horticulture that she didn't entirely understand but enjoyed anyway. Later, after Lily was asleep and they were washing dinner dishes together, Ethan wrapped his arms around Marianne from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Do you ever miss it?" he asked. The penthouse, the company, the life you had before?" Marianne thought about it honestly. "Sometimes I miss the security of knowing I could pay for anything without worrying. I miss having a working dishwasher." She turned in his arms to face him. "But would I trade what we have now to get any of that back? Not for a second. This life, with you and Lily and our chaotic little family, this is everything I didn't know I needed. Even the lumpy couch?" "Especially the lumpy couch. Though I wouldn't complain if we replaced it eventually." "Deal." They finished the dishes in comfortable silence, moving around each other with the practiced ease of people who'd learned each other's rhythms. The evening stretched out before them, full of simple pleasures and ordinary moments that added up to something extraordinary. Through the window, Marianne could see the garden they'd just planted, small and hopeful in the fading light. It would take time to grow, would require patience and care, and probably some failures along the way. But that was okay. The best things in life were rarely instant. She'd learned that the hard way, having spent years chasing success and achievement and all the things she thought would make her happy, only to find that happiness had been waiting in the most unexpected place. In a small, worn house with a man who fixed broken things and a little girl who believed dinosaurs deserved their own bedtime stories. Marianne had come to this house during a storm, desperate and displaced, looking for temporary shelter. She'd found something much more valuable, a home that wasn't measured in square footage or luxury finishes, but in morning coffee shared before anyone else woke up, in burnt eggs made with love, in the sound of a child's laughter echoing through rooms that had known too much silence for too long. She'd found a family. The porch light glowed warm against the darkness as they settled onto the couch, still lumpy, still too small, still perfect, for their evening ritual of mindless TV and comfortable silence. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and small victories, but tonight, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Home wasn't the penthouse she'd left behind or the career she'd walked away from. Home was Ethan's hand in hers, Lily sleeping soundly down the hall, the familiar sounds of a house that had welcomed her when she had nowhere else to go. Home was choosing to stay every single day and being chosen in return. And that, Marianne thought as she curled into Ethan's side and felt his arm come around her shoulders, was worth more than any penthouse or corporate title could ever be.